This is the Black Nerd Talks podcast. This is your main host, Eb. I'd like to tell you a little bit about me before we start. I'm a social worker and men's rights advocate with an extensive history in competitive esports such as Guilty Gear, Gundam vs. and Street Fighter. I hope that today's episode will provide you with some nerd self-help through deep conversational interviews and open discussions where you hear the stories and perspectives of our fellow nerds. Join us as we uncover the themes and messages found in the mediums of anime, video games, and as well as comic books, and how we can apply the life lessons found in them to deal with our everyday struggles. You can also find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Discord, all under the same name and logo of Black Nerd Talks. Follow us to let us know what you think of the latest episodes. We'd love to hear your feedback. Following us will also allow you to keep up with when we drop the latest and newest episodes. We also have an Etsy shop where if you search Black Nerd Talks, you can find our Black Nerd Talks t-shirts and crew necks if you'd like to support the podcast.
All right. First live. I should also do that. Thank you for joining. Aha.
Hey, how's it going?
And himself.
Huh.
You tried matching with me on purpose, bro?
Huh?
Me on purpose?
Oh, no, this is mostly just a result of me needing to do laundry.
I feel that. I did mine a couple weeks ago. How have you been? We haven't spoken since the whole fiasco stuff. Where we were. So.
Yeah, no, I've been good. Yeah, it's just been pretty nuts. But yeah, so doing all right, though. Just tired. Like most adults in their 30s and over are.
Yep, I can relate to them actually over being tired.
Oh, boy. Yeah. How are you doing? How's school? All that jazz.
Oh, man, this week has been something, man. School has been all right. Nothing's really started. I start tomorrow.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, school starts this coming Monday, not this past week. So I had orientation Thursday. Went over a good few things. I think I'm the only male in my program.
Yeah.
For those that are wondering, it's education assistant. So I'll be working with kids who have developmental and behavioral challenges. So I start tomorrow. I had to my form for OSAT. I did my one, I think ASL, whatever. People with learning challenges like myself. I did the registration for that. And then for those who are wondering what those challenges are, go listen to our past episode I did it on Rockley and Deku. I won't go over it again. And then, so just making sure I'm ready for tomorrow, look into the textbooks and everything. I would have done this. A lot of things I would have done, but bro, I think you're in the group chat. I got access to the Marvel fighting game.
Oh, wow. It's amazing. I think I must have missed that. That's amazing.
Yeah, so the demo, the closed beta, I should say, was sent out Thursday. But apparently it looks like other people like Killmonger will not complained about it. And so Sony expanded, almost no one got it. I'm talking about Maximilian.
Yeah.
Didn't get the closed beta demo. Tons of people didn't get the closed beta demo. And they just opened up to a bunch of people. So I went entering this weekend assuming I won't be playing the game. And I got an email this yesterday morning. So they have some charge when it comes to the demo. One of those things being is only has certain hours, which they didn't say in the email.
Oh, that's annoying.
Imagine me not doing things. I go to log in the game and it's actually you can't play this.
Oh, that's so disappointing.
Bro, I had to wait until 11 p.m. to play it. But that was the next segment, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Jeez. Oh, boy.
However, I will say game is really fun. It has some aspects of Marvel vs. Capcom, but you can really see the foundations of Arc System Works games like Guilty Gear and Dragon Ball Fighter. So very much up to my speed. Captain America, that righteousness.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cap was hella fun. I could only play one character. Open next demo because I'm a slow learner, so I didn't really they literally throw you in, you put you in a tutorial, they show you 60 mechanics, and then
wow.
I'm I don't remember how to do a Shoryuken.
Oh geez. Yeah.
I don't even know. I don't know a good button layout is play on stick. It was definitely challenging. So hopefully the next one do a better job in terms of being more clear with the information, making it more accessible to everybody.
Yeah.
And giving a trading mode would be much more appreciated.
Yeah, okay. I guess it's a beta, but damn, surprised that they didn't even put that in.
Bro, the first person I was playing was juggling me in the air.
Jeez.
I was like, you could do that when you're playing something and you're playing someone, you're like, I didn't know you could do that. The first person I played, I was like, oh, I didn't know that was a possible mechanic in the game. I didn't know.
My God.
Yeah.
Wow. Brutal.
Yeah. Bro, I got cooked 3-0.
The game does look amazing though.
When you play it, it's completely different experience when you play it. Like the game's fun. And I only really like fooled around with Cap. I even played like I think it's like 5 or 6 characters that are in the demo. I touched Iron Man a little bit, but I need to be able to sit down and learn all the different functions of each character. So I just played around with Cap, and I'm like,
yeah.
Thus, his shield throw is so much better than Marvel vs. Capcom.
Oh, no way.
So he can throw the shield. It's called trick shield. He can throw a shield. He can bounce it. It's not just, remember in Marvel, it'll just go up, forward, down.
Yeah.
It's like up, down, off the wall, bounces, and then comes back. You can kick it again, and it hits, and it comes back. And each one counts like a full projectile. Like you throw it once, it'll clash with Unibeam.
Oh,
if
wow.
you do it again, if you get again, it's equivalent like another Unibeam hit.
Sure. Yeah. Wow. That's really cool. Damn.
And then you probably don't know this about me in video games, but I have a thing for counters.
I've never heard of that before.
Yeah, I love counters. I love counters and parries. Like I live for that. I live for that shit. Yeah, Cap has a counter.
Oh, okay.
I think the only game like with Marvel vs. Capcom has been around since we were kids. So I give it like maybe 30 years, 25 years. I'd say 25 years, if anything.
Sure.
They only gave Cap a counter in like Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, which came out 6 years ago.
Yeah, that was the most recent one. Yeah.
Bro has a shield. How does he not have a counter all this time?
Yeah, it doesn't really make a lot of sense when you think about it.
Yeah, they gave him a counter straight off the jump.
That's nice.
Unfortunately, it doesn't counter lows, which I experienced.
Shoot.
I was like,
the hard way.
This doesn't block everything. Okay, good to know. The amount of times people woke up and mashed, they're just swinging off the jump. I was just like, yeah, no, that. I was like, this button, this move, and it lasts a long time too.
Wow. Okay.
That's like maybe 1 to 2 seconds of him holding the shield like this, and it also doesn't just like counter. It also acts like block. So let's say a projectile comes, you'll also still block that. It won't just stop because a projectile comes in.
Yeah. That sounds really strong. Actually, that sounds quite effective.
Yes, it doesn't do as much. It doesn't do that much damage though.
Yeah, I can imagine they want to give him some of the him being like I'm assuming he's the Ryu of that game. I don't think that he is, like, from what little I've seen, it doesn't look like a Shoto character, but he looks like a little bit more balanced than most of the other characters. So
I would say both him and Tony are like the Ryu and Ken, Kai and Soul of the game. I don't know which one, but I can tell based off what I've seen with them.
Yeah.
They both hit both archetypes. I would say maybe I didn't get a chance to really fool around with Tony as much. Tony, Iron Man, for those I haven't picked up, I would say he probably plays more Kai than Ryu, because you can beam and projectiles. At the end of the day, a shield is not going to do the same range as guns and lasers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But I would say probably that, and if anything, like Cap might be like more like Ken/Soul, but like Ken and Soul don't have full screen control.
No, that's
like his shield goes everywhere.
Yeah, which is real cool.
Yeah. Pedro said he's having some technical experiences, but Debo said 2 seconds.
Sound good. And then actually, I'm gonna just grab a cord for my headset, because it's just beeping, so it means it's almost out of juice. So
probably
I shall return very shortly.
Good timing, because my Debo's here. Oh man, this guy has a camera here?
Oh,
what?
Oh, hey. All right,
okay. I'll bring you back down. Baba.
Yes, sir.
We got cameras on? We got the black. Oh, you ready?
Camera
ready
on
for this
today.
episode?
Yeah, I don't know if the camera's gonna catch it.
Oh no, let me hold on. Let me.
Oh yeah, we got it. We got it.
Oh no,
We got it
for the moment, for the culture.
for the moment.
Okay, I'm gonna take. Jeez. Yes, sir. How have you been? You and I haven't even spoken for like a hot minute.
Not extensively.
Yeah.
Not extensive.
Oh,
yeah,
Andrew's back. This is the first time you guys are both on this episode together.
Yo,
Yes, it has been.
how are you?
So, what's the good brother's name from Rebel Ridge?
Oh,
Green Lantern.
oh man.
What's
I'll
what's
take.
What's his name again?
Oh, damn, it's gonna bother me.
I can't remember the actor. Gosh.
Because they did that whole thing from Jennifer Hudson's show. It's gonna bother me now.
Okay, I gotta look it up.
I'm playing it up right now.
That's Mufasa. I can't remember now.
Aaron Pierre.
Aaron Pierre. There we go.
Yes, that is Nedu's doppelganger.
Oh, what? Come on now. Don't be absurd. That's ridiculous.
To be honest, I'm gonna have to big you up, Nedu.
Oh,
Talked to people when we did Black Panther. What was it, last year? Remember you were wearing a suit?
oh yeah.
A lot of ladies are like, oh yeah, I remember Nedu. He was looking real good. Like they were,
Okay.
yeah.
settle down.
Like, oh yeah, I remember talking with her. I was like, okay.
Embrace it, good sir.
Oh my goodness. You know what? Sure, I'll take it.
Yeah.
Aaron Pierre.
Oh, wow.
And apparently, I look like Aldous Hodge. So we got Aldous Hodge and
I
and
can
Aaron Pierre on this episode.
All-star team. All-star team.
Amazing. I'll take it. And yes, I could see that for you. Absolutely. Oh man. Dope.
Just waiting for. I'll give a few minutes for Quajo. He said he literally just started getting technical difficulties. I
How it
love
goes.
this stuff.
That's how it goes.
So I did some research this morning. I watched the movie again.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
I forgot how good it was.
It's a
I
movie.
forgot how good it was.
Mm-hmm.
It's way better than Wakanda Forever.
Yeah, Wakanda Forever. I call that The Woman King Part 1, but that's a different conversation. Sorry, go on, Nedu.
I know. I was going to say, I actually do a lot about Wakanda Forever. It's disappointing in a lot of ways, though. There are things that I do, and I actually do like the characters, and I do feel like they were in a tough spot. But
Agreed.
there's some wild choices that were made regardless. But yeah, they were in a really tough spot. But I'm mixed on it. But I do the first one more. But I just feel like I have to sometimes come and defend that movie because I know it's just rough.
Yeah, that's how
It wasn't terrible, but you can tell that the production was plagued with issues. This was not the movie that they set out to make originally.
No,
100%.
absolutely not.
100%. But yeah, but no, that first one, though, was really good. Yeah. Again, I'm sure we'll talk about it more, but I took my father to it to see it upon the second viewing. And normally he's like, the whole movie, he'll be sitting there asking me like, who's this character? Why are they fighting? What's going on? What's the plot?
Why is this happening?
Yeah, 100%. But that movie, he was actually locked in. I was like, oh, okay, look at that. That's pretty impressive, though.
Have any of you two seen The Eyes of Wakanda?
No, not yet.
No.
Have you?
I have watched it, and if you do watch it, it ties in back into the two. I can't really recall Wakanda Forever. It ties into that as much as I haven't seen it as recently. But watching back Wakanda, Black Panther 1, see how the movie ties in, especially with the war dogs and everything.
Oh, okay, interesting. I can't wait to see it. Oh,
Hey,
Sure, welcome.
This guy's setup is crazy.
Is it crazy?
Smokes.
impressive.
What's good, fella?
Hello.
Living the life, brother.
The smooth voice.
Man, I'm trying to get like you, bro. I'm sorry I'm late.
Hey, man, I know the technical difficulties.
Man, I did everything. I checked everything like last night to make sure it was on the up and up. And then as soon as it's time for me to do it, it was a problem. I don't know.
That's how technical difficulties go. It doesn't matter how much you prepare. Something's going to go wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
If they're going
Literally.
to grade you by African Standard Time, you're still early.
It ain't been 15 minutes yet.
This is true.
That's a fact. I'm even to the technical difficulties. So, like, I spoke to Dr. Dunbar. One of the things he said is like, always have your live stream play on your phone. I couldn't even find it right now. Even though I did it like a few days ago, I can't remember. We're all just, this is just what it is. We just figure, as I remember Dr. Tierson Johnson said, building the plane while flying it, building the plane while flying it and also getting a piloting license. So, Quajo, our featured guest, please tell us who you are.
What's going on, everybody? My name is Quadro. I am the chairman of the Black Male Journal. It's a documentary and educational resource, social media-based company advancing the cause of a philosophy that I'm calling revolutionary Black masculinism. This is a methodology of thinking and praxis that advances the idea that Black men and boys have been strategically disadvantaged by neo-colonial and traditional colonial projects and it seeks to identify the means by which the underdevelopment of Black men and boys has been implemented, as well as to offer solutions to that. So that's what I do.
And in case you don't know, one of your comments, one of the people that leave comments for you is on the right over here. You see it as, I think you have the same IG handle, right?
Yeah.
Ebo Original.
Yeah.
Ebo Original.
He's left some comments on your stuff too, bro. I found your stuff. I sent it to the group chats. Everyone's always just like, "Oh, who is this? Bro,
it's me. It's me. Thank you, brother. Ebo Original. I don't know your name yet. I haven't met everybody in the chat.
The anglicized version of my name is Debo, just like the dude from Friday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brother Debo.
Yes, sir.
Nice to meet you.
Pleasure. And my name is Nedu.
Brother Nedu.
Don't just say that. Don't do that, Nedu. Don't do that. Don't just say Nedu.
Uh-oh.
That's who you are. Don't do that. Need to know.
Okay, I am a therapist. Yeah, I generally work with Black youth in a specific kind of area in Toronto. Yeah, I've been doing this for 13 years now, actually, I think, now that I think about it. But yeah, so I primarily work with Black youth. In the past, I actually specifically worked with men, but now I kind of work with everyone. But yeah, no, I just really appreciate like where that focus on how it's pretty common for young men and Black men specifically to be disenfranchised. And that happens a lot in the space that I work. So we work a lot with these youth, support them in seeing what's happening, and also just seeing their own potential and supporting them, having options. Because I think sometimes their whole world gets closed off because of a lot of the outside forces that keep them down. So
yeah, that's really important work.
And you have to keep in mind, we're here in Canada and we're still experiencing it. We're not even ADOS, FBA, and we're still experiencing a lot of the stuff that happens in the States, I would say, and I don't know what you guys think as well, it proliferates into Canada, where we experience a lot of the things that happen there too, by proxy being next to each other. No one, like the average person that's not from the diaspora is not going to differentiate between ADOS, African American, and like how we're Nigerian, or even how I'm half treated. They don't. You're Haitian. No one, they don't differentiate between us. We're all just lumped together, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, this is unapologetically going to be my most Pan-African episode. I am Pan-African. When I think about it, I just never knew the term until like years later. I don't even know it was probably from Obi with We Need to Talk, which we're all familiar with. My parents, very Pan-African. My mom is the one who taught me a lot about African-American history, global African history, slavery, all that stuff. My dad listened to music from everywhere around the world. So I grew up with reggae and everything, Zouk, whatever it is. And so because of that, I grew up with a lot of experiences, especially being of mixed heritage. One of those things being, which is the source of this episode, how we're married to culture. And I feel like Black Panther is a really good medium to explore that conversation. I guess the thing I'd want to ask you guys is, what are your thoughts on the idea of us being so married to culture, and how we're married to culture and what that looks like from your experiences? Oh, y'all, no one's talking. Am I going to have pass this? You know what? Quajo.
Notes.
Oh,
I was going to wait for somebody else to hop in because I'm still thinking about that terminology, married to culture.
okay. I can expand on it further for you, since everyone's all rubbing their chin and whatnot.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, I've seen how, this is an easy one I can say, you're not Nigerian enough, you're not Black enough, you're not Trini enough because you don't do X, Y, and Z. Oh, you don't listen to Afrobeat, you're not Nigerian. Or this is something I've experienced. I don't like fufu. I know. People are probably, Ned even had to turn off his camera. He couldn't take the
I can't believe you said that.
She said, I can't believe it.
He's probably threw up in his mouth just now.
Nedu said, I'm gone.
I'm out. What the
I
heck?
didn't know we were going to talk about this.
This has gone. It's got too far. Nah, it's all good.
I agree with you
carbs.
completely.
I understand.
Yeah, I don't know who else wanted to chime in on that. Yeah, there's just so many things that unless you do even one of my boys, he was even saying how like he doesn't like dancehall music, and even though like his parents are of Jamaican heritage, and he was inseminated in Jamaica, TMI if you will, and then like he spent years in Jamaica because he doesn't like dancehall and he doesn't like Atkins saltfish. his Jamaican like card is always up for debate. I love acting selfish, by the way. That's a different conversation. Yeah, if you don't like everything and all things and do everything in accordance to said culture, you're automatically against it in all facets. I guess I would say that's what I would say is married to culture.
To your point, we are great gatekeepers of our culture, where like we're so ready to exclude somebody for whatever reason it is. So it could be, like you said, you don't like fufu. It could be somebody can't dance. It could be somebody can't play ball. Whatever it is, there's going to be something that you'll be excluded from the Black community. I can't remember the person's name, but they do a lot of videos where it's like what a person might do to get their Black card taken away from them. So everyone knows all the situations where your Black card can be taken away from you. Whether it's you haven't watched the movie, like I said, you can't dance, you don't eat a particular meal, you like a particular type of woman. There's a bunch of reasons your Black card can be stripped away from you.
Yeah. Oh, please go.
One of the things that I think about a lot, just in my analysis and the way that I think about things, like part of my outlook, I'm constantly looking at class, right? In this kind of like capitalist equation whereby capital is being transmuted from one form to another form and made into transaction. And I think about, especially away from the continent, I think in terms of diasporic Africans and continental Africans, those who are descendants of the diaspora and those who are directly homegrown, so to speak. And I think that diasporic Africans are often at, or feel to be at, like some type of disadvantage, whether real or imagined, and sometimes it is real, but there's a form of cultural capital associated with certain identities, right? And that maybe it's an extension of some kind of scarcity mindset or something to that effect, where it's like, I have to be really discriminating with who I allow into this group, because so much of my identity, so much of my value in a foreign land and place and territory is tied to that identity. So if I let anybody and everybody into that identity, then I cheapen it, thereby decreasing the value of the group as a whole. I mean, sometimes I think that's valid and sometimes I think that's invalid. Something that I think is particularly, infuriating, maybe that's the word, is it gets complicated because there's this transmutative quality. There's the cultural capital, but then there's like genetic capital, so on and so forth. So like Black people, for an example, diasporic Africans, that is, or even some continental Africans, were very excited to claim Barack Obama, for example, right? Who came out of a blonde-haired vagina, right, when he was born. His mother's white is my t-shirt. She's whiter than that, right? And yet nobody has any problem claiming him because he has a certain type of political or intellectual or some other form of capital that allows us to pull him. But in other ways, it's like a manner of controlling one's behavior if he or she doesn't do what you want him or her to do. When I was a kid, they used to tell me I wasn't Black because I like to read books, God forbid. So there's a hypocrisy there that exists with this kind of cultural keeping.
Especially, I like you brought up hypocrisy, because look at how easily we as a people invite people outside of the culture.
I was just
to
about to say that.
cookouts.
Fact. Yeah. The cookout thing. Yeah. The cookout thing.
The amount of times I've seen Europeans be accepted, white Europeans being accepted into African culture simply because you saw them speak pidgin English and they chop fufu. Now they're included into the conversation. I'm like, that's it? That's all it took? But for me, I got to do all of these things to maintain my Naija boy rights.
And you even see that kind of play out in Black Panther, where when in the beginning, where T'Chaka, that's the dad's name, right?
Yeah.
T'Chaka.
Yeah. T'Chaka kills his brother.
Yeah.
And leaves the child there. But then when you go on to the son T'Challa, not only does he bring the Winter Soldier into Wakanda, he also brings Agent Ross into Wakanda later.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Sorry, Nedu.
No, it's okay, because it's really complicated too, because I think what makes it really messed up is, and so, because I do agree with that, and what makes it messed up is the fact that I think, at least though with race, there's this idea that there's a difference between gatekeeping and also just like welcoming people as guests. And I think that can become complicated because, especially when, like you're saying, like there's this idea of capital involved, and when it comes to the idea of it being like literally a money making thing. The gatekeeping becomes those who have basically those who are rich and those who control the narrative. Look at BET, right? I remember when I was really little, I watched BET for a week straight when I was in the States. And I thought I was really confused, but also because again, like I've been told I'm not black by both black and white people growing up because I'm just a bit of an odd duck, if you will. And I just remember watching that and being like, is this what I'm supposed to be like? I was like 10 or something like that, right? But then when you start to understand who the gatekeepers, who the people are that are controlling that network, right? Like it's not a conspiracy, it's just fact. And then it becomes who's actually dictating this, who's actually being the gatekeepers. And again, like it happens on multiple levels. Like you said, sometimes it happens on a like national level or a level where it is white people essentially who own this network who are like dictating what black people is supposed to be. Then it goes into meso or micro level where it's just like black people in these spaces. You're not like us, so you don't belong here. But then it becomes also like your level of access. And then because, oh, that person doesn't quite belong, but they've got a lot of access. So let's let them in. It's very complicated. And it's often like dependent on who's trying to get what out of what.
Yeah. There's also this kind of, I think when we determine or when we like arbitrate who gets to be in and who don't get to be in, it's there's a dynamic kind of interplay between culture and ethnicity. A lot of times we take these two things for granted, almost like they're the same, but they're not quite. The term black as an identifier can be used to describe either black cultures and ways of behaving or black flesh like we have on our bodies. But I think it is that the barrier to, I don't want to say barrier to entry, but how discriminating and how closely people look at you in order to qualify seems to correlate highly with the way that we physically appear. The blacker you are, the more discriminating I am. If you just say one little thing like you like skateboarding, like I'm looking at you funny. But if you Eminem, the barrier is really low. Oh, you like to rap? Okay, that's it.
Yeah.
He's one of us. You get inward pass and everything. And that's,
Wow.
once again, I think that has a lot to do with that has a lot to do with how far away from blackness he actually is and how much we perceive that we could benefit from claiming him.
Yeah.
And that's the capital transmutation aspect, not necessarily money, but any
Right.
number of other things that constitute capital in the broad sense.
Right. Yeah, no. And from an empathetic standpoint, I could see how there's this fear, I guess that would probably be the word I would use, a fear of preserving culture. There's a really good scene in Black Panther where, after the ritual and Killmonger became king for 5 hours, there was that point where T'Challa came back. He's like, as you can see, I am alive. And we all love that scene. And there was that point where, so the ritual is not over. And then you saw how Killmonger was like, nah, I'm not following the ritual anymore. I got what I wanted. I don't have to respect the culture and the rituals anymore. I can just do with it what I want. And I do think there's that sort of fear of our elders to preserve that, because the next generation, if they're not connected to culture, then they can move very far away from it. And that in terms of what I see here in North America, where there's a lot of kids who grew up here, I'm just like, bro, if you were still in Zimbabwe, you wouldn't be able to be doing that. We both know that. You can't, how you're acting is not acceptable culture, but because you're here, you never grew up there, and your parents aren't, what's the word I'm looking for? There's not a transference of, I guess you could say, culture. You're very alienated from it. Even in terms of 2.5 of us, not fully Nigerian, we don't speak Igbo. Our parents didn't transfer Igbo to us. And so therefore we didn't get, I'm planning to take Igbo classes at some point in the near future, but we didn't learn that. But Debo, I know you understand Yoruba, but you also were like heavily encouraged to speak it yourself. And so we just lose that along the way. And I think that's where a lot of those fears come from, which, like I said, the scene with Killmonger was a very good example of what happens when culture is, what's the word I'm looking for? There's not much of a concern to lose it.
Yeah, it's interesting because sometimes when I do these sessions occasionally with some of the moms, like some of the caregivers, and one of the big topics that keeps coming up is like this whole divide between them and their kids, right? And a lot of these folks are immigrants, right? But they come from their home countries and their kids were born here. And so that becomes a really big conversation, and it's so tough. And again, looks different for a lot of, like, every person, every family, every situation. But we talk a lot about like how they're in a new situation. There's a lot of pressures here in North America that they didn't have, and they're different. They're totally different pressures, especially when it comes to, and I know Eb could speak to this, but like that kind of presentation aspect because everyone's looking at you. So you have to act a certain way. And there's a lot of pressure for these kids. So we talk a lot about what that middle ground looks like as well. Like, how do you marry that? Because you can still accept a new situation and new information, but that doesn't mean that the culture that you have, that you're bringing here, that's super important, who you are and your identity has to disappear. And that's like tough because I think especially when you're like 11, 12, 13, especially when that you're starting to go into the world outside a little bit more, it's really hard to appreciate those things. So it's really tough for parents to transfer that information in a way that kids will accept, especially because like discipline looks different back home than it does. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's a fact. Yeah, no, you're right. In terms of the struggle with that, it was definitely growing up. You guys both know, and I know Badebo especially knows because we grew up here in Toronto. It was not cool to be African for a hot minute. Like now, last, I would say, up to and around Black Panther, it became cool to be African. Prior to that, you're, what's it called? African booty scratcher, nose picker, living in huts. So
Afrobeats help too.
Sorry?
I say Afrobeats, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, Afrobeats. It all happened around the same time, like the Afrobeats.
Yeah.
But yeah, like up until it was just not cool to be African. I couldn't hide it. And I'm sure it was the same thing for you, Debo, because I was like, what's your name? So couldn't really project my Trini side. But it was definitely challenging. But the thing that helped me was the fact that I loved my upbringing. I loved like my culture, right? Even though I couldn't quite, funny thing for me is because I'm mixed, is that I didn't quite differentiate between the two. Like when I went to some Nigerian house, I was like, how come there's no curry? I didn't know curry was a Trinidadian dish. I thought it was both sides, right? But it helped me have pride in terms of who I am, in terms of it was challenging at some points to be who I am.
You mentioned names, and that's triggering for me because I had a rough go at it with my name because, see, he's been saying my full name, government, which is Gbadebo, Gbadebo. And hardly anybody can pronounce that. Naturally, I went by Debo, but even growing up, nobody knew nothing about no Debo. So I literally hated my name for the longest time because I'd be the kid going to, what do you call them? Like them shops that you go to, what do they call the gift shops? You'll see everybody buying them little trinkets with their names on it. Never find a Debo. Never find a Debo.
Yeah.
It wasn't until Friday that I started to appreciate my name.
Oh.
And that's why representation matters. Because I seen a big bully named Debo and everybody was like in awe of this guy. A kid came up to me in school, was like, hey, what's your name? He's like, I told him my name was Debo. He was like, oh, like the dude from Friday. I'm like, what? There's a guy named Debo in a movie?
Yeah.
So from that moment on, started to appreciate my name.
That's dope. Yeah, I really appreciate what you said about representation because it really does matter. I'll never forget, even just like when we watched Black Panther. When I went to see Black Panther, I was just telling Eb earlier that like when I went to see Black Panther, I went to see it with my dad. My dad is a person that will just get confused at every movie.
I don't know why all our dads are like that.
I don't know, man. It's like literally, it must be a thing. But yeah, he just, who is this character? What's going on? What's happening? I don't understand a thing. What's the plot? I'm just like, oh my God, we're in the theater, Dad. What is happening here? But when we went to see Black Panther, like two things really interesting. The fact that my dad, like he was locked in. He was paying attention the whole time. He was recognizing iconography, names, accents, like all kinds of stuff. So he was really interested. And then when we got out of the theater, I walked out, I saw a couple of kids jumping. You know how those theaters often have the display that has like the big movie, like it's on cardboard and stuff? Like a couple of kids, black kids were jumping around and they're like, I'm black, I'm T'Challa, no, I'm T'Challa. They were jumping around like playing. Man, like this is like such a beautiful thing to happen. And growing up, I love media. I love all kinds of stuff, but I got so used to not being represented. Like I at very early age, like I don't need to relate to characters or anything to enjoy it. But when you see that in real time for really young people, it's amazing.
Yeah, it was the same thing for me. I saw it like when it came on theaters. I saw it 4 times. Once, did I go by myself the first time? I'm trying to remember the first time I saw it. There's a 90% chance I went by myself to go watch it. I'm a lone wolf like that. And then the second time I went here, it was not here because I'm in Oshawa now, but when I was living in Scarborough at the time, you could call it like a uptown type of area, Quaidro. And they had this, an organized, like Black organizations did a whole film screening where everyone got to go in the movie for free and have a whole conversation after the movie, live panel. And that was the second time. And like all the time, there's so much pride. No, I went with my boy. I remember. And I remember we walked to the theater and we're just like, yo, when we walk in, if they ask us what we're here to see, we're going to like point to like our African attire. You know what I mean? Don't ask. Don't be ridiculous. And yeah, so I saw there was just so much pride into the diaspora for the movie. And there's one specific scene I love for the movie, which I added the clip here, where T'Challa wakes up in the ancestral plane. And this really spoke because my mom passed as well. And there was a point where T'Challa's like, Papa, I'm not ready to be without. And then he's like, Papa, I'm sorry. And then T'Chaka said, stand up. You're a king. That scene, that hit hard. The thing I've noticed between Black Panther and Black Panther Wakanda Forever, and then adjacently The Woman King, is that when I've had a conversation with a lot of our sisters, the ones that are close to me, the thing that like when I talk about hashtag recast T'Challa and et cetera, we have the untimely passing of Chadwick Boseman, is they never conceptualize the idea of that representation. Shuri was a great representation for women of the diaspora, but like when it comes to T'Challa, they never thought about. I'm like, I asked them, one of the conversations I've routinely asked them, like, when my nephews go watch Wakanda Forever, who is going to speak to them in terms of representation? And it's completely like, it went over their head until I asked them that question. Like, they don't really think about that importance of that representation that they need to have, because it's important. Not only, never mind there's issues of the way T'Challa was represented by not being a super genius and whatnot, even in terms of his relationship with Nakia, that also has its own challenges as well, but just the idea of him being a strong, powerful African leader who's on par in many ways, and even more than Captain America. That is such an important representation that was lost in terms of this whole not recasting T'Challa. And I think that's missed in terms of the conversation. I know you guys thought about it. I know, Quadro, you definitely have some thoughts on that.
All day. There is this, once again, it comes full circle to this like kind of transmutative capital analysis that I have. And that is that in the mid to latter 20th century, right around 1960s, all the way to today, there's this kind of burgeoning and developing class aspiration associated with the commodification of one's identity. Identity can make you money, or identity can make you special or give you status above other people.
Exceptionalism.
And so with this, specifically in this kind of like year and time frame, we're talking about the back end of the 20th century, we come into gender identity becomes very hot, and gender identity becomes very important. The really interesting thing about that term, gender, right, is that theoretically, everybody's got one. We in this panel, we have a gender, right? But really that term, gender studies, gender identity, gender, et cetera, really it's not talking about that. It's speaking about one specific gender, that's the female gender. And so as Black men, when we're represented in media, except in the cases that we're like thugs and deadbeat dads and things like that, really the only identity that we're able to lay claim to in any kind of like significant way is the ethnic or racial identity, the Black part. But we have no specific male gender identity. And so then when you look at the Black Panther, a lot of the times I think that people conceptualized, people outside of this specific conversation we're having right now, which is probably most people, they're looking at Black Panther as a Black hero, period, not as a Black male hero. And when you see Shuri come, and she's now the Black Panther, she's conceptualized both as a Black hero and a Black female hero. And so there's this almost Reagan-ish trickle-down thought, I think, that occurs to a lot of Disney executives and ESG engineers and so on and so forth that say, Shuri's Black, so what do we have to complain about? We're represented by Shuri because the only significant part of our identity is the ethnographic component of our identity. And she covers that. She checks that box. And that goes into a whole nother conversation about like environmental safety governance protocols, ESG, and the whole ESG scoring system and stuff like that, and double minority status of Black women. Once again, these things are hugely capitally incentivized by existent superstructures in the Western world. But I think by and large, people don't think of Black males as having a specific gender differentiated identity.
And to study and to understand. And also for people who don't know, I don't think I did an episode on ESG, Yeah, I do have one in mind, but equity social governments, for people that are wondering, it's like a term that was developed by, I think it was BlackRock, right?
I think so.
Yeah, BlackRock. Also, my life insurance was tied to BlackRock, so that's probably why I didn't talk about it. Yeah, I remember seeing it like when I was working, where I was working before, because I read through everything just to make sure, especially with the idea of content creation, I saw BlackRock. I said, oh, good to know. I'll be mindful of it in case I decide to cover this topic. But yeah, no, like that scene spoke very powerful. Just stand up, you're a king. And I could see, I remember seeing like some of the young boys that that I knew they were sitting next to me. I saw how that hit them to their core. I don't know if you guys had any similar experiences when it came to, I know Ned, you spoke to that too. I don't know what about for you, Debo. You're also on mute, by the way. He's back.
I felt both scenes in the least for actually all three of them. All three scenes in the ancestral plane were powerful for their own reasons. Because the first one, with a big to me was T'Chaka giving T'Challa the confidence, like a father basically like boosting up his son to say, you can do this. I've given you enough to be the man that I know you can be. And from there, you see T'Challa go on to do what he does. And then in the second one, that's when you see T'Challa realize his dad's not the man he thought he was. And for the first time, actually defies his father. And then with Killmongers, you see the conversation about what it's like to be different. If you go back, they will not accept you. So the realization that culmination of all three scenes and how powerful they were, and like the messages that they give for each part of the movie, I thought was masterfully done.
Agreed. And you brought up a point in terms of defying his dad, and that's another aspect that I've seen in terms of, especially on my Nigerian side, but I also say on my Trinity side, is the idea of shame. Shame is such a shame and guilt, but more so the idea of shame. While shame and honor, it can be good, and we all watch scenes of Jeff St. James bring shame back. I'm not against that, but it's the idea of how shame can be used to weaponize and keep us from having certain uncomfortable or tough conversations. Even like when I found out about what happened to Killmonger, or what's his name again? Eric. What's his last name? Eric something.
Evans?
Thank you.
It is Stevens.
Eric's, damn. Appreciate you, bro. Zuri ends up saying to him, some truths are too much to bear, T'Challa. And that question, is it truth or is it shame? Right? Him not wanting to have this conversation of what happened with Killmonger. Quidra is like processing right now. Yeah, not wanting to have this conversation about something that was bad that happened. And I've seen that happen so much in families where everyone is basically let me reference my inner Kendrick Lamar. Everyone's tap dancing around the conversation. No one wants to have
a lot of families. A lot of families. Well, we're talking about Black people here, so like a lot of families have like secrets or shames that only certain people in the family know. And just like how Zuri knew what the situation was, but that was something that he was ready to take to his grave. And it blew up in everybody's face. But there's a lot of families where it might be a situation where somebody stole a whole bunch of money from one family member, or somebody did something to another family member, and they still keep that family member around, but nobody knows why. Like a certain family member might be ostracized. There's always a little secrets in every family.
And I would say, just to add for you, I'll let you go next. It's like, and that's, I would say, influences generational trauma and epigenetics, right? Like, it's the source of the thumbnail for the episode. It's literally a quote from Zuri. We had to maintain the lie. Like, how many of our families or people around us that there's this idea of we have to maintain. We didn't just lie, because the thing with the lie that makes it hard is that you have to keep lying. You have to maintain it, because the moment you insert the truth, now you contradict the lie itself. So we had to maintain the lie. And that is such a, to me at least, maybe I'm an idealist, but I find that such a problematic dogma way of thinking.
Yeah.
No, I couldn't agree more, because I think we've seen both probably in our own families and other people's families, especially when you work with young people, you see how those lies have a way of just spreading all kind, like keeping people trapped in a box and in this type of reality. And when that lie comes out, like it's just, you see how devastating that can be. And it's tough because there's the trauma that is like absorbed in the family because that lie is being maintained. And then there's another trauma because when the lie comes out, or when people start admitting to it, but then they're not really willing to address it. They're just like, that's just the way it is. And you have to, and it's always been, so accept it. And that's like a tough thing too, because yeah, sometimes that lie just really rocks or contradicts everything. Just like in the movie, it contradicts everything you thought about your family, about where you came from, about your own. Exactly. And it's really makes you like, it's just, again, like I really like, Debo, you talk about those 3 scenes, right? Because I think every one of those scenes where it's almost like the progression of how that lie goes in some ways. Granted, obviously the different characters, but like at the beginning, it's just like, you don't know about it. So you're just there absorbed in the culture and like everything's cool. And then the second part, like you find out and you're so angry because it completely throws everything off, right? Like it completely throws your whole vision of what everything was. And it's really damaging. And I think the interesting difference was with Killmonger. When he went back, his dad, he was honest with him. He's no, if you go back, they're not going to accept you. Even if you were a good guy, you're too different. You're not like them. Like there was a difference in that honesty, as opposed to the lie that was being maintained on T'Challa's side.
I want to play I actually have some clips added. I'm going to try them out, but I want to see, Quadro, did you want to add anything to that piece?
Maybe people lie for different reasons, I think. And so I think about when we talk about like long-standing familial images that are based upon like false appearances, like that's seeking to maintain the dignity and honor of the way that a family is seen, or a community or a group of people is seen, not looking at this particular pervasive issue that may or may not exist and persist among them. And that's an ego kind of thing. And I think that's one way to perceive it. But one of the things that I think is so compelling about the lie told in the Black Panther movie is that it can be interpreted in a kind of two-sided regard, because sometimes a lie is put forward so as to protect people.
Agreed.
To protect those who would have to deal with the consequences of the fallout, those who would be associated or condemned as guilty by association, et cetera, et cetera. Sometimes a lie is maintained, as in the case of Zuri, for example, so that nobody else has to bear it. And I can see both ways. It's not explicitly stated. We had to maintain the lie. For what? For who? For whose benefit, actually? That part is a little bit ambiguous, and it's interesting storytelling nonetheless.
I think it was purposely, yeah, as you say, I think it's purposely ambiguous, because I think it was, as you say, you want them to understand why he did it. And like you said, I think it's a good point where it's just like the reason, they're trying to protect also the generation of folks who were not even involved with that. And so I appreciate the idea that the movie is just like, you get to decide how that feels for you, as opposed to them saying whether it's good or bad.
Yeah. Was he just trying to maintain the good face and the good image of the king? Or was he trying to actually protect his family, his lineage, his legacy in a network of people who were connected through his actions in a way that he couldn't necessarily immediately control, from the fallout associating with what he probably regretted as a decision on his part? Either way, he lied, and it eventually came back. That's one thing. It's an old North African proverb. There's 3 things you can't hide, or that will eventually come out: the sun, the moon, and the truth. Yeah.
That is true. I'm going to try and play the clip. This clip spoke to like me being in terms of my ancestry specifically. Let me try out some StreamYard here.
Is this man Wakandan or not? Ted, speak. I'm standing in your house, serving justice to a man who stole your vibranium and murdered your people. Justice your king couldn't deliver. I don't care that you brought Claw. Only reason I don't kill you where you stand is because I know who you are. Now, what do you want?
I want the throne.
Hey, you, the tuna. Y'all sitting up here comfortable. Must feel good. It's about 2 billion people all over the world that looks like us, but their lives are a lot harder. Wakanda has the tools to liberate them all. And what tools are those? Vibranium. Your weapons. Our weapons will not be used to wage war on the world. It is not our way to be judge, jury, and executioner for people who are not our own.
Not wrong. But didn't life start right here on this continent? So ain't all people your people?
I am not king of all people. I am king of Wakanda. And it is my responsibility to make sure our people are safe and that vibranium does not fall into the hands of a person like you.
Son, we have entertained the charlatan for too long. Reject his request.
Oh, I ain't requesting nothing. Ask who I am.
You're Eric Stevens, an American black operative, a mercenary nicknamed Killmonger. That's who you are.
That's not my name, princess. Ask me, king.
No. Ask me. Take him away.
Indibani, Indingo, Indidaka. Iriana, nothing joking, huh? Unyanagan Global.
I found my daddy with panther claws in his chest. You ain't the son of a king, you a son of a murderer.
Uyabosisa. Lies.
I'm afraid not, Queen Mother.
Huh? You in that control.
Hey, auntie.
I'm exercising my blood right. The challenge for the mantles of King and Black Panther.
Do not do this, T'Challa.
As the son of Prince Njobu, he is within his right.
He has no rights here. The challenge will take weeks to prepare.
Weeks? I don't need weeks. The whole country ain't gotta be there. I just need him and somebody to get me out of these chains.
T'Challa, what do you know of this?
I accept a challenge.
Okay. Now I just got to bring everybody back up, I think. Trying to figure out how this thing works. Okay, there we go. Okay. All right. Were you guys able to see it?
Yes.
Yeah.
You have no rights here.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
The line that gets me every time because it's just so, hey, auntie. I'm like,
Yeah, absolutely. Kugler, whoever wrote that did their thing, man.
yeah,
Whoever wrote that scene was cooking.
top notch.
This is one of my favorite scenes. That and like when Killmonger brings the body of Claw into Wakanda and they're like, who are you? And they're both trying to differentiate. You see Wakanda is the American. I've definitely experienced ours. You're like this, but you're born in Canada, but your name is Nigerian and Igbo, but you don't speak Igbo, but your hair texture is definitely not kinky and curly. And it's just having that interplay of, even though you are Black, because you're mixed, there's even more of a contestation of your identity by others. And you could see even throughout that whole scene how embarrassed T'Challa was. As much as he was furious of Zuri and T'Chaka carrying that shame and that guilt, hiding it, T'Challa ends up doing the same thing in that scene. And leading up to and further into that scene, even in terms of just not trying to address things with Killmonger. And I see that as like a great embodiment of the transfer, the shame and guilt that transfers throughout generations, right? We're just not talking about this thing. I don't know what you guys thought about that scene and just what I observed rewatching that scene.
What's the name? T'Challa was still ready to maintain the lie. Even knowing the truth behind Killmonger's origins, as he pulled up, as Killmonger was telling him, tell him who I am, or ask me who I am, he still refused until somebody else in the crowd shouted out, who are you?
He was even whispering. I would also like to point out, like he was like talking under undertone and just trying not to hear anyone else here. The only reason I can kill you where yours because I know who you are. It's just stay with your chest, bro. Obviously, we know why he did it, but
So even with the lie right there in front of him, he was ready to maintain it.
Yeah, there's a desperation there, almost like with him saying, take him away. He was just like, no, we're not going to do this out here. And again, like, I think that's true. It's like that family shame is coming out into the open in front of everyone. And that's especially when you just learn about it. And then you have this, because he idolized his father. Like, his father was a really good man to him. And it's not like he was wrong to love his dad. Like, his dad was a wonderful person to him. And so he thought the world of him. And so it's also this lie can bring some shame to my father, to my family, all kinds of stuff. Again, you're the son of a murderer, right? That's so intense. So he was just like, get this guy out of here before something happens. But it was too late. Like, it was, like you said, it was right there. There was nothing he could have done.
there's even a point I only observed when I was watching this scene again with when Killmonger said, your dad's not the son of a king, your son of a murderer. I found my daddy with Panther claws that says, you saw Wakabi turn his head. Even though he already knew what was going on, even that, he was like, wait, what? What else do I not know? And you can see that was a friction in their relationship even more.
The dynamic with Kobe was really interesting to me. It reminded me a lot of, I don't know if you guys know the Greek legend of Oedipus.
I know the name. I know
Oedipus. There's this whole thing in psychology called the Oedipal complex or the Oedipus complex. We don't need to get into that, but but the point is that Oedipus went to see the fates who have the ability to tell the future, and the fates told him that he would kill his father. And he was like, no, this can't be, because he loves his father very much. And so he like ran away from home and never came back so as to subvert the will of the fates or whatever, and ended up forgetting what his father looked like. And like many dozens of years later, got into an argument with a man and killed him, not knowing that was his father. So it was like, because of his attempting to escape fate, he actually led to the securing of the fate. And that's one of the things that I think about here, where especially with Wakabi, because Wakabi was already in that gray zone. He wasn't really happy about the previous administration because Ulysses Claw had killed his family, and he was waiting for a really long time for T'Chaka to do something about that. And then when T'Challa took power, he said, I'm gonna do something about it. And then he failed almost as soon as he said that he would do something, but his brother, he didn't do it. And there was that scene where the brother said, I thought it would be different with you than your father. And I find out it's just more of the same. Shortly after, the result of this lie that they maintain comes and actually delivers on what Kobe had been waiting for generations to be delivered. And if there may have been more honesty, then maybe Wakabi wouldn't have been in such a position so as to be so easily swayed by this outsider person. And you can even see it kind of like in his eyes, as well as Killmonger's eyes, when he walks into the, whatever you call it, the king's chambers or whatever, he's looking at all of them with this kind of attitude that I don't see all of you in the way that you see yourselves. I see all of you as people who destroyed my nuclear family, destroyed the head of my family, and then left me as an orphan so that you could enjoy. And he even says it like, y'all look real comfortable up in here, like you're selfish. And it's really interesting the perspective that he has and how valid in many ways it is, but how ignorant they are of the same thing.
Yeah, and I can't really, every time I watch that today, you never really fault Wakabi for being swayed the way he is. It's like he was asking for much. And you could see he was always willing to, he was more, what's what I'm looking for? Revolutionary. He was more prone to revolutionary action than T'Challa, right? Like he was even saying, like, if you want us to start helping the diaspora around the world, let me know. I don't want them here. So one thing, maintaining the culture, but I'm going to go out there. You saw that with him. He was ready. So Killmonger just gave him the opportunity to execute in those actions. And yeah, it's true, right?
It was first to say that the moment this guy, T'Challa, brought home Ross, as opposed to Claw, relationship done. And I don't think that most people in Wakabi's position would have done anything different. This man sat there and promised that he will get you justice. Not only did he not get justice, but he brought home an outsider to save his life. There's a lot of question. There's a lot of blaming that T'Challa would have to do if I was Wakabi for me to be fair in a place to forgive him.
Yeah, true. And it's hard to have those conversations when, and this kind of goes into the scene that we were just watching, where the thing I always find when I go to visit either my Nigerian side of my family, it's the same thing on this Trinity side, but I see more on the Nigerian side. And even like when I'm visiting my colleagues of the family, like my in-laws and everything, and we never really, this is the reason I tend not to. There was a clip I was watching on Instagram of Preach from Abin preaching how he talks about how he's not allowed to talk at family functions. I'm that guy. It's just better I don't talk. I'm going to say something that's going to upset somebody. So it's better I just stay quiet, just on my phone. If I can, I'll bring my laptop. I'm going to go in the basement, be on my ones. No problems. Because you say, oh, Bear, how are you? I can't tell you that I'm struggling with employment or my health is this or this and that because, oh, what do you mean? Now, all of a sudden, because going back when we said before, you're not maintaining the lie. Now, my integrity, my ability to be a husband or provide whatever is up in the air because I'm not maintaining this image of all the bills are paid, no car problems, no health problems, no marital problems, no kid problems, no school problems. Everything is just good. Everything is smooth and honky-dory, if you will. And because we don't really...
pun on purpose?
Sorry?
Was that a pun on purpose?
Huh. Honky-dory? Really? How?
Usually they say hunky-dory, but it sounded like you said honky-dory.
Yeah.
So I wasn't sure if
wow.
that was...
No, I'm trying to keep this live stream open. I'm trying to avoid strikes on YouTube, you know.
Okay. My bad.
But no, which makes everything's honky-dory, everything's good, everything's great, and we don't really have honest conversations. I'm just like, even with, and I think it's also important to know that everyone here in this chat has worked with young people or is working with young people. And I think we can all agree on this, like within those of us that when we're working with people of the diaspora, it's very hard to get honest answers initially. Like, how are you? I'm good. I'm fine. You're upset and you're scrolling, and I think I'm seeing tears in your eyes, but you're okay. Because everything's always supposed to be good. And then when everything's not good, it's hard to have honest conversations, like in the case of T'Challa and Wakabi.
Yeah. It's interesting. I was just thinking about this as we were talking, and not to say everything's like perfect. I say, but my I don't want to say too much just because I don't want to. It's a large family. You never know. But my immediate family, like my brothers and my parents, we're all kind of weirdos amongst our people.
You guys are outliers. You guys are outliers. Your parents,
yeah,
how you're doing.
Yeah,
they want to know. What?
Yeah, yeah, it's bizarre because don't get me wrong, especially like growing up, it was really tough because I think there was the pressure. Again, that's the whole thing. I don't need to get into all of that, but grew up in a very white community, and I was like, my parents are working constantly, so I talk very oddly, even for white people. And I was raised by a lot of old people. So I was reading like books from like the 1960s and earlier. This is how I learned to speak legitimately. Mm-hmm. And it's a whole thing that like, so my parents were very much like that when I was younger, but as I got older, like they learned and they educated themselves a lot about not just learning more about the world, but also about how to like interact with their children. And they also learned from us. And so they're a lot more open. Like I learned a lot more about their pasts, about like things that happen back home that are just things that our family won't really talk about, like a larger family will not talk about. So again, I'm not going to say too much, but there's certain comments about myself and my brothers, but because we're not really matching where we should be or who we should be, apparently. But it's like our parents are just like, we don't care about that. We're proud of it, which is just like a really interesting, and I feel very lucky about. And I feel like in some ways, I'm almost like sheltered a little bit from the larger thing because I've seen it, but now I just stay away from it because I'm like, why would I put myself through that? And also they don't really live near me at all, so I don't have to do that too much. But that's not to say I don't care about them or don't like I still interact with my aunties and uncles and cousins, especially virtually, but I don't have to go to those more family, like those large family settings that often where I'm going to feel like I can't actually be myself. So yeah, exactly. So I feel very grateful for that. But yeah, like but the fact that it is strange that's the case is interesting, especially when talking to my cousin. Now we're the bit of the weirdos because of that, which also further kind of makes us a little bit othered in that sense. I don't know, it's very strange.
Well, that's exactly my experience. Just to add a little bit on what you're saying, like whenever Deb and I visit extended family, we always have to rehearse the things I can't say or talk about. I just, and that's what you're saying. It's the reason why I like, I guess you could say ostracize myself in my own way, because I'm like, I'm not really good at hiding how and who I am. So I'd rather just avoid putting myself in really bad situations. I'm very comfortable being by myself. So it works out in those regards. Quadrant and Devil, you guys are quiet. That's crazy.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about, just in the context of this idea of maintaining the lie. And this happens to me as well. I've learned to not tell what they call white lies. When somebody says, how are you doing? And it's really not good. And you say, I'm fine. It's like a lie that theoretically doesn't hurt anybody. I'm like a really conscientious person I'm actually offended by that kind of thing as well. So I don't say that. When people ask me how I'm doing, I say I'm Black, or I'll say I'm alive. Or sometimes I divert the conversation by saying what I've been up to. How you feeling? I just been working a lot this week. How are you? And then that's usually good enough, and it goes over people's heads that you didn't actually answer the question. But I just wonder what that does. The idea of either answering the question in the affirmative, socially polite kind of way, so as to not disrupt the flow of whatever hegemonic kind of transaction is happening, or in the case of you, Mr. Norrell, saying nothing, relegating yourself to a basement. I wonder,
bro.
That's what you said. You said that. I didn't say that.
Your wording just killed me as a relative.
You know,
well, you're right.
Like, I'm just thinking, what are the longitudinal effects of something like that, and what's the alternative? And especially in the context of this idea of maintaining the lie, is saying nothing also maintaining it? That's what I'm sitting here thinking. So that's why I'm quiet. I'm just thinking.
Yeah, I usually just say nothing. My wife is really good at politicking. So I usually let her just do the talking. Maybe I'll add a little 1-2 cents, or I can find someone, maybe a cousin or whatever, who like I can actually have some conversation with, or somebody, and I'll have those conversations with people. But the wider, bigger conversation, I usually let her handle that. Even with sometimes like my own sister and like my mom, I'll let my wife handle the politicking, because I'm more, Netta knows it, which is the reason I get more in trouble than him. I'm very direct and very straightforward in terms of the things and what I observe. And no, that offends people. I try to be mindful of not offending people, but it tends to be a thing where I'm just like, let me just toe the line a little bit before I say what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling.
I feel that a lot.
Yeah, no. So what was I going to say? Yeah, I do think that really put a big scene with that scene. Actually, no, before I go there, Deborah, what did your experiences working with young people? Because you work with young people as well, in terms of just the idea you also maintained a lot. We didn't get your thoughts. You're real quiet, bro.
I was a daycare teacher many moons ago. I also coached basketball. I'm trying to think if there's, in my experience with working with children, if it relates to our conversation here. And off rip, I'm not really seeing any, which is probably why I was silent for the most part. So I think it's best to pass me on this, because I don't see, with my experience with working with children, there hasn't been much correlation.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, because even this kind of conversation goes into another aspect. So I remember I had this is a couple months ago. This is like June, July. And I came out of a really tough meeting where I was working. And right after a meeting, one of my uncles called me on my Nigerian side. And it goes into the scene where T'Chaka arrives in Oklahoma. No, not Oakland, sorry. Almost, even though we have like someone who is living, you're Oakland, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, okay. I can't be affording to get that wrong. T'Chaka arrives in Oakland to meet with Killmonger. And I found that scene with him and T'Chaka's conversation with Jobu and my conversation with my uncle, it almost felt like the conversation was a checklist. I'm asking you how you're doing just to make sure I know I asked you how you're doing, but I'm really here to talk at you. I'm not really here to hear your perspective, what you have to say. Even though I'm going to ask you how you're doing. In the case of T'Chaka and Jobu, is that why did you give the vibranium to Ulysses Claw? I don't really want to know. I'm just going to hear what you have to say out of, it's like cordial. I'm trying to be cordial in terms of asking how you're doing and what's going on and why you did it. But I don't really care. You know, it made me think of that experience with my uncle. I'm like, you don't even know what I'm going through right now, even though you say to call you and and I'm going through something, whatever it is, or you ask me or you're checking them, you're not really interested because I have 4 older men in my life who are like mentors. One of them is like a big brother to me. And they always wish me happy birthday. They always check in with me and they ask me genuinely how I'm doing. And from that perspective, even though these uncles are like my dad's brothers, I see more of these men as my uncles than my own biological uncles because they're actually like, no, how are you doing? What is going on with you? How can I support you? As opposed to, hey, how are you, Barrett? Did you know we're coming to America? We are coming to Canada in the next 2 weeks. So prepare yourself. Well, the night all right when it's okay. You don't even know what I was going through earlier today. I can't really show that because what do you mean? And it's spreading of rumors and so forth. Once again, I have to maintain alive. Everything is good because even if I told you, you're not really here to hear what I have to say. You're not really here to understand what I'm going through. You say to share. So I don't know if you guys had any thoughts on that, but I really found that. I'll just actually have it right here. Shaka arrives and asks him how he's doing. And then he says, Jobu says, why are you here? And he says, because I want you to look at me in my eyes and tell me why you betrayed Wakanda. And then he gives his answer and he's, anyways, Prince Jobu, you will return home at once where you will face the council and inform them of your crimes. Even though Jobu's experience at the States, they're highly incarcerated, or drugs and so on and so forth, he's not really listening to anything you have to say. He's not really, and he's more talking down on him. Finger white. Also, fun fact, I don't know if you guys know this. You know that opening scene in the movie where he didn't go to it, but they're like somewhere. That's
So, sorry to interrupt. Your audio was a little quiet. I don't know if anyone else is having the same challenge.
Yeah,
it is
starting to get a little warbly.
Warbly, fantastic.
Yeah.
That's the reason why you guys were squinting. Is it still doing that?
It's good.
Sounds much better now.
Okay.
Maybe it's the distance or some kind of sound suppression or something. I don't know.
Okay, noted. Okay, yeah. So I guess I'll go back on what I was saying. Yeah,
It was right around the time of the fun fact. You just give us a fun fact.
Okay. I was just saying, did you guys miss the whole thing?
No,
okay.
no.
Okay.
I was wondering about this fun fact because break it down because this was curious to me because I did not know anything about this.
Yeah, I live, breathe, and sleep like anime, comic books, all that stuff. So when they're talking about bringing the car around and breaking in with the guns and everything, that was actually trying to break out Jobu's wife, Killmonger's mom. She was incarcerated and they were trying to go in, probably wrongfully knowing that time, and they're trying to break her out. Now, because T'Chaka doesn't really care, really and truly, let's call it for what it is, about what's going on there and what the goings on there and whatnot. Killmonger's mom ends up dying in jail. So Killmonger grows up without parents.
Oh, snap. So Killmonger's mom was with, I think it's safe to assume she's probably a Black Panther.
Yeah.
It's very highly likely.
And she died in jail. Killmonger worked without parents. So you can understand how he feels about Wakanda. Like, Jobu's trying to break her out. Sorry, you're about to say something, Quajo?
Yeah, when T'Chaka pulled up and checked in with Njobu, Njobu did the same thing. He gave the cordial, kind of polite greeting. He said, "How are you doing?" or something like that. And he said, "Glory be to Bast," which is the goddess or God. I'm not sure what the gender of
Goddess. I believe goddess.
It's a lady. Yeah. But effectively, thank God, I'm doing well. That's what he said. He could have said,
"True.
I'm in the middle of a lot right now. My wife just got locked up and I'm dealing with a whole bunch right now and trying to coordinate. Actually, I'm glad that you showed up so that maybe you could help me and I can rely on it and depend on you." But he didn't say that. And I think that to come full circle to the Oedipus complex and like trying to avoid a fate, thereby sealing the fate, especially when King T'Chaka pulls up and he knows that Njobu is up to something. But Njobu, upon being asked how he's doing, doesn't give an honest and clear response from the perspective of T'Chaka, perhaps that only deepens the kind of like synapses or wrinkles in the brain that conceive of Jobu as a liar. Because I just asked you how you're doing and I already know, but you tell me some BS.
That scene there, it reminds me of how they say the FBI, they won't try to get at you until they have all their ducks in a row. So it's like the case is basically like locked and loaded. So they just got to pick you up at that point. T'Chaka was the same. He had all the information there. He even had Zuri there, and unbeknownst to so when he was like, you took you betrayed Wakanda, and help you see Ulysses get the vibranium. He's ready to lie, but he's, hey, Jerry. So right away, squash that. And what else did I write? The way that an elder's crimes or transgressions are always excused. And anyone under said elder, their transactions will always be laid bare for all. So in this example, there was nothing stopping what's his name from lying about what Ijobu did in Wakanda, in Oakland. He could have just brought him back home and said, "No, you're not a war dog no more. That's your punishment." But you're gonna go in front of the council and tell everybody what you did, but nobody knew he killed Njobu.
That is true.
You're
You are right. Yeah, I don't even know. Now that I think about it, yeah, no one knew. Everyone knew he passed, but no one knew how he died, because that's why Wakabi had that reaction where he's like, Panther claws in his chest.
Yeah. And that's how it is a lot of the times in our communities when we look at our elders. How difficult is it to try to get an elder to be accountable for anything that they do wrong?
Like, as you were talking, I was thinking about the difference between Chaka and Njobu versus, I'm thinking of specifically into Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse when it comes to Jefferson and Aaron, right? Like the two brothers that are Jefferson Davis being Miles Morales' dad, and then Aaron being his uncle, right? Because they have a really similar split where you have Jefferson being the police officer and Aaron being the screw up, the guy that's involved with gang and crime, right? And there's like this real divide between them. And again, of course, like we know the story, and Jefferson ends. I'm thinking about the comic books now. I'm getting them mixed up, but
Video games, I got you, bro.
They're all mixing it like that. But Aaron ends up dying in the end. But there was this moment where Jefferson leaves him a voicemail and reaches out, and I think that's like the difference that I think is interesting, because T'Chaka gave up on Njobu. He gave up on him because he was so ashamed. It's like, how dare you do this? You embarrassed us. You've embarrassed. Are you not embarrassed? It's like literally.
Are you not embarrassed?
That meme, but it's like literally he's so humiliated by him. He didn't have to kill him. He had the Panther suit, for God's sake. Like you did not have to do that, but he chose to. And in this situation, like Jefferson was also like probably ashamed of Aaron and how all this stuff, especially because he's law enforcement, all this stuff. But there was this part of him that's, no, I love you. You're my brother. So he tried to reach out. And of course, it was way too late. And that's the problem, right? He did it way too late. But could you imagine if T'Chaka was like, Njobu, I'm so angry at you, but I want to understand what is happening. I want to understand. And that's not what he did. It was that shame that he felt was too heavy to bear. And so I'm just going to cover all this stuff. I'm going to sweep it under the rug, as opposed to let's try, and we don't understand each other. I don't understand you. You don't understand me. Let's figure this out. And it's just, again, who knows what could happen? Obviously, that's not the story, but I think it's interesting because I was just thinking about these two situations where there was someone, especially the one with more privilege, was willing to put an olive branch out. And I think that's often our duty, the ones of us who do have more privilege. Hey, I actually should reach out, and I should be willing to like see where you're at, because you're hurting and I don't get that because I'm not in the same situation. So I thought that just thinking about those two kind of narratives and how they went differently, and how that also impacts the child as well, right? Because I think knowing that Miles was a little bit more able to connect with his father afterward. And in this situation, like there was, of course, an angry reaction from T'Challa, understandably, because you lied, you were all wrong. So I don't know, it was just interesting thinking about those two things and what we as like families could potentially do when we don't understand someone. How can we actually put that olive branch out and actually try and gain some understanding, even if we don't get it?
That's the reason why those men I talk about, like I have such a good connection with them, is because they try to, what's what I'm looking for? I guess you see, for lack of a better word, level with me. Because we all worked in these social fields, meet them where they're at. When you're able to do that, it really helps just have an open, honest conversation. When you're not willing to do that, you already have, when you already enter the conversation with preconceived notion, it makes it very hard to bridge a connection or understanding with that person. Because like I said, Shock was just like, I'm here to bring you back. I'm not here to really have a dialogue. I'm just doing the formality, but I'm here to bring you back at the end of the day. And I don't really care what you have going on, bring you back. Oh, you didn't tell me, like what Joe said? Oh, you didn't tell me you really don't have anything? All right, cool. Now I'm really not interested with whatever else you have to say.
As much as I think that there's a something like a fetishization of like continental African royalty and what it is to be a dignitary or a noble or a king, right? There's a whole kind of like slang term in the Black community. What's up, king? Everybody wants to be a king, right? There's this high fascination with that and this real huge, it's very sexy, this appeal of being a king. But I think that right there, what Brother Nedu just said, like speaks to the concept, they say heavy is the crown, that there are liabilities associated with like very high profile social status positions. Everywhere the king goes, he's never alone. He has his Dora Milaje following him. He has people looking at, he has the spy, Zuri there. And I think that it's possible between just people watching him and judging him always, as well as, I guess, the long-standing kind of like reputation that outlives the immediate scope of his decisions, that in and of itself could be a disincentive to have modest heart-to-heart talk with his brother. That his status could make something like that difficult, because unlike Jefferson and Aaron, who are just some brother, nobody knows, they can be in private, just chopping it up with each other. Everybody's watching what the king's going to say. Everybody's watching what the king's going to do. And I think of that almost in this case as like a hindrance to his proper functioning social relationship.
No, you're right on that.
That's a good point. Yeah.
You're right on that. And culture makes it hard. There's actually another scene that I really like that. Like I said, just watch the movie again with this lens of this conversation. There was just so much. There's a lot of bits and pieces to pick on. It was at the beginning of the movie when they're on the Talon, which I also want to talk about the Talon at one point in this conversation. And they're flying over I think one of the rivers in Nigeria. I believe I know it's in Nigeria, but I can't remember where it's in Nigeria. And the little young women being trafficked. Thought about it was really cool from a superhero standpoint. Came in and stopped the human traffickers and saved the women and so on and so forth. But then watching it from this lens where we're having this conversation, I was like, oh shit, Okoye and T'Challa, if it wasn't for Nakia being there, those men were going to be trafficked. That was it. There wasn't really a question of what they're doing in terms of culture. It's just like, no, this is what we do. And even going as far as to say Okoye telling them, like, you'll speak nothing of this day. Really says, yeah, even though we're doing this, we're not doing it from a Pan-African standpoint. We're doing it out of convenience. And I think that, once again, that reinforces this conversation about just falling through in terms of culture, because Wakanda is one of the main tenets of Wakanda is isolationism. And so we're not, even if we see all these bad things happening, we're not going to get involved unless we have to out of inconvenience. It's too inconvenient to ignore. Otherwise, yep, they're going to get trafficked. We could stop it very easily. You saw how you easily stopped them.
And it seems as though, was that Nakia? That she was early on, really early in the film, she was some kind of representative middle ground, right, between T'Challa and Killmonger, because she was getting involved.
Yep.
Killmonger's whole thing was like, we should get involved if we have the capacity to get involved. And T'Challa was like, we shouldn't, because that's too high profile.
Yep. And
Nakia was like, I'm going to get involved, but stay low profile. Like she was like in the middle.
Yeah,
that's true. And it's interesting too, because it's like you said, like also, what's the getting involved in stopping these folks, but they're not necessarily doing it on like a national scale. They're not like going in and stopping the ring that they could easily do. But Nakia's at least being like, hey, like we can at least do something. There's somewhere there. And again, maybe that's not like the full answer, but she cannot stand idly by while at the time, T'Challa's, I think what I really like about this movie, sorry, I'm jumping around here, but is T'Challa is like building who he is and who he wants to be as a king. And so what I really think is cool about this movie is that there's a lot of different people representing kind of different philosophies in different places. And Nakia is kind of like, hey, we can get a little bit more involved. And Killmonger, granted, I do have some issues. And this is the problem when the villain is too right. They make them super evil. So he's gone too far. And that's actually a problem in a lot of storytelling.
Malcolm X, he wants to kill everybody.
Exactly. So it's like, oh, he's got to be stopped. He's gone too far. And then it somehow invalidates his point. But I think Black Panther at least tried a little bit to not do that, but I think honestly, I feel like they have been regretting killing him since they did in that like end of the movie. I think writers are like, what have we done? Because that character's so rich, right? But I think that's the thing. It's just like he has a lot, like any good king. There's a lot of really smart people around him, including his nemesis, saying things, and he has to figure out how am I going to move this. I really appreciate that aspect of the film, is he's still building who he wants to be as a king. And by the end of it, he's a little bit more sure of what he wants to do. Yeah.
On the topic of Nakia, I think, especially when we're talking about the topic of being married to the culture, there's a quote, and I'm going to read out more quotes, but there's an exchange between Okoye and Nakia just after Killmonger defeated T'Challa in ritual combat.
Before you go on, that scene, I don't know if you guys felt the same way. That scene felt like I was watching a Nollywood movie, and I found that really impressive. It felt like a Nollywood movie.
Talking about between Nakia and Okoye?
Yeah. It went from like a superhero movie to I'm like, now I'm watching what are you going to do? The king is gone. Hey, we're going up.
I got quotes. I got the quotes right here.
Hit us with it.
So Nakia pulls up to Okoye, and she's helped me overthrow him before he gets too strong. Okoye is, I'm not no spy that can come and go as I choose.
Yeah.
I am loyal to the throne, no matter who's sitting upon it. What are you loyal to? Nakia goes, I loved him. I love my country too. Okoye, then serve your country. Nakia, no, I will save my country. And when it comes to being loyal to customs and traditions, I think this is the epitome of what goes on all over Africa, where it's like a person could be like in the position to do the best for the country, and then somebody who like let's say like a foreign power will want something and put a puppet regime in charge. All of the people who were following the person who was out for good will still follow the other person who was following who's part of the puppet regime.
Yep.
Because that's just what's been going on. And you see it all over the continent. Hopefully, we'll see a switch with what the good brother is doing in Burkina Faso. Before that, it's been that on repeat. Whereas like somebody would try to do good, foreign power, then everybody would just follow along. Even if they have the power to do different. Nah, I'm gonna marry to the customs.
Yeah, no, you're actually, sorry, I'm trying to figure out this. There we go. I'm so liking this whole streaming thing. You actually make me think of, just to add on your quote, now we're going quote for quote, bar for bar. When Jabari arrived at the king ceremony, the royal ceremony, and you saw how bro was upset. He was just talking with his chest, and he was saying, we have watched, I'm going to bring up, because like you could tell their accents based off West Africa. So I'm going to bring in the whole accent. We have watched and listened from the mountains. We have watched with disgust as your technological advancements have been overseen by a child.
We will not have it all.
No, hold on.
Who does not respect tradition?
Who scoffs our tradition? No, you're kidding.
We will not have it.
We will not have it all.
Another one of my favorite scenes.
Yeah, no. Once again, those are that representation. I'm like, that's exactly how
that is.
Those are my uncles.
That man is Nigerian. Like, straight up. At least it's
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I do think that's an important part in terms of going back to what we're talking about, like the idea of culture and marriage, is that like we feel as if we have to pick and choose between progress and maintaining customs, rather than why can't we go through progress and have our customs adapt to that progress? It's not really talked about that often, but when it comes to Thomas Sankara of Burkina Faso, one of his main oppositions, I've seen that with a lot of our various African leaders. Even like, when I think about it too, also before our episode where I was watching something on Malcolm X, is that it's usually the elders who have issues with, wait, you're not doing things like how we done it for the last 100 years in the exact formula? What do you mean? So you're against us now? And it's, no, I'm not saying we can't have our customs, certain customs. Is that this custom keeps us from like having electric cars, for instance. I don't know, I'm just giving an example. And that was one of the main oppositions for Thomas Sankara in Burkina Faso. Yes, there's a Eurocentric imperial neo-colonialism that often, yes, we know that. But like in terms of within, like on the ground, like that was an issue with him and the elders. Even on Malcolm X, when he came back from Mecca, the Nation of Islam did have issue with him, where he wasn't, for lack of a better word, anti-white, right? He was a lot more, his thought and his way of thinking had evolved. And sometimes that tends to be a thing where, like, to be almost African or Pan-African means to stay at a certain place without ever challenging or questioning it. I don't know what you guys have some thoughts. I even have an image I want to bring up to show you guys after, which you guys saw a split second. But
is when Okoye asks, who are you loyal to? And sometimes it's like being a member of the diaspora is, am I going to be loyal to traditions or loyal to myself? Because sometimes you can't do both.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I think the tough part is that it feels like if you have one incursion, right? Because like you said, you can't always do both. But just because you don't always do both doesn't mean that you still don't respect tradition. But that's what a lot of elders, a lot of people are going to see. Oh, you did that one thing. You're not one. You don't care.
You hate the culture. You hate your people. You hate your ancestry. I never said that.
Exactly, right?
Getting your hair or getting your ears pierced.
Yeah.
So you're a homosexual gangster. Whoa, first of all, both those things don't mix together. And then why does my ear pierce mean I sell drugs in the community? How did we get from here to here?
Yeah.
You never say about Burna Boy, so what's going on with that?
He brings a certain type of culture or capital. He brings a certain type of capital, and so you can get away with it. To our earlier discussion.
Which is literally capital.
Yeah.
Literally.
You can
Cultural capital as well.
You can almost do whatever as long as you can show I'm making money from it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which, sorry, I just wanted to add, and it goes into like the things that we over prioritize in terms of our community. Like I think about with my parents going back to Nigeria, Trinidad, and they're visiting family, and like, oh, what did you achieve or what did you do? And like you say, I made friends in community. Like, so you went to America or Canada to find mates. That's what you're here to bring us. You're here to bring us mates. The power of friendship. This is not anime, my friends. What do you bring here? And it's very hard to talk about the things that really matter in life when we don't even value those actual things that matter in life. That's why if you go to different parts of Africa, they tend to have a higher level of like satisfaction in terms of life, right?
There's this highly class aspirant presumption of life in the United States that a lot of continental Africans have when their children, offspring, nephews, nieces, whatever, come to the United States. And that's really that America, or the West anyway, is the land of like milk and honey and money, really. And I think to a degree that's true-ish, although America's not doing as great right now and a lot of us are struggling. And I hear conversations all the time with people on the continent who are asking people over here for money or send us this, send us that. And it's not as easy as you saw on TV. It's not like that over here for real. For real. I see that when you talk about making friends and building community and that being seen as something that's not necessarily as useful. They're really, for a lot of immigrants to the United States, they don't come here for culture. They don't come here for friendship. They don't come here for the food. Really, the main driver of immigration to the United States or to Canada or to the Western world in any event is just the accrual of capital. And I might even go so far as to say that that makes sense because the United States, and I'm just speaking from, because that's where I'm at, I'm down here, y'all are up north up there, that the United States doesn't have that much to offer in terms of long-standing, deeply impactful or highly useful cultural tradition.
Yeah. Just to speak to what you're saying, like I have a good friend who lives in the States and I talked to her quite a bit and she's an activist. Like she'd say she's retired, but she still does a lot of, and she was just like, again, not to get too political, but I remember was it January 6th? I had a conversation with her maybe a week after that and she was spitting mad and she's just, this place is a joke. It does not care about us. It does not care about us. And because she has family from the continent as well. And she was just saying, they don't understand how hard it is here and they don't understand the damage that it's done. And I think that was interesting too, because her family's been in the US for generations. She only, some folks like more recently, but it was just interesting kind of seeing that like complete difference. Because if you were talking about traditions, her traditions are all like specifically like Black America, right? That's where she's from. Like she identifies as a U.S. citizen, as an American. Well, so that's where her traditions are from. And then the traditions from her family back on the continent are totally different. And she was trying to make a lot of effort to understand them, but she felt like there wasn't a lot of effort, but a bit of judgment from on her side. And so she's in this place where she feels trapped here, but then she also, I cannot connect with them where I think there's just like this divide that happens. And I think just to what you were saying too, this lack of quite understanding what it's like here and how difficult it is. And I really appreciate that. Again, like in the movie where Killmonger and Jobu, like they see it so clearly and they want to do something about it. And again, we could argue whether it's good or bad, but they're just like, we can't sit here and see people suffer. And I think that's another thing that happens too, is it's almost, there's this lack of empathy that happens when they're like, they're not our people, which is, anyway, we could get more into that, but sorry, I feel like I've been talking a lot, but it's just, I think that lack of empathy is sometimes what also happens when people are like, why don't you send this? Why don't you send that? And it's a lack of understanding, lack of empathy, because they're not actually starting to, what's it like for you there? It's more, can you please bring me this? And there are good reasons for it. I'm not even saying I'm not even trying to point a finger or blame people for having that perception, because that perception is very clearly doctored and done very well for that reason. But it's just like, how do we start to bridge that? It's just that question. Let me understand where you're at. It really does need to happen. I feel like it just doesn't a lot.
Yeah, you're actually making me, I just want to add the quote, because I was just thinking about that scene where, after they revive T'Challa and almost said Jabari, M'Baku are talking, and T'Challa's like, I could really use an army, and Jobu's like, I'm sure you could. And then he said, and then T'Challa's like, hey, I would say for the first time, T'Challa starts having more of a Pan-African approach on things. Oh, let me dismiss that. And M'Baku ends up replying, I will give no Jabari lives towards your cause. And then he's like, and then T'Challa's like letting him know, and he's like, our cause, you're the first king to come here in centuries. And now you speak of us? He's right. And this is often the thing, we just tend to just replicate certain things without questioning. Even in terms of, I was having this conversation with my wife about people of Haitian ancestry, right? As Quidro, you are of one. And I was having having this even more specific conversation with my wife, where she's always talking about like voodoo and stuff. And I've seen that in terms of like my Nigerian side, my Trinidad side, there's always this thing about Haitian diaspora. And I posed a question to her. I'm like, don't you find it interesting how the first independent country of the diaspora has such a negative global image? And she said, what do you mean? I'm like, Haiti was emancipated in 1803, if I remember correctly. Like, after that, there was nothing until I think 1954, 56 with Ghana. And then I think Nigeria was 1960 or 1961. That's a huge gap. Don't you find that interesting how there's just this global negative image about them? But we don't really question it, right? They're just this, right? Nigerians are just scammers, right? Jamaicans are just polygamists. Haitians just do voodoo. African Americans have no, but we just propagate certain media images without really questioning it until we're put into uncomfortable situations or until someone challenges us about those things. Sometimes both at the same time. I don't know if you guys had any thoughts on that piece.
The craziest part about Haiti is that it's literally attached to an island that's a tourist destination.
Crazy, isn't it?
Because there ain't nobody trying to go to Haiti I'm going to Haiti for a vacation, 5-star resort. But it's literally attached to an island that everybody goes to.
Yep.
I think what ends up happening, I know what ends up happening, is when Western powers, namely the United States, but there are others, can't get their way out of transitions of power in terms of governments, especially regimes that are maybe pulling back away from capitalism, is there ends up being these inter-industry wide-scale campaigns to defame or disestablish the legitimacy and the public reputation of certain nations. Public image of the nations. Sometimes it's kind of like vengeful. Sometimes it ends up being like a long-term tactic that ultimately seeks to supplant or displace government, so on and so forth. because they rest on this decades old tradition of telling these types of narratives about certain groups of people, right? So that when they kill President Moise in 2019, the United States military coup dissolves his placement and the country plummets into chaos, so that later, maybe 4 or 5 years later, they can call in an international effort so that I think it's Kenyans. They wanted Kenyans to come over there and start killing Haitians. So that all of this is then justified because we've been told for the last 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years that the Haitians are savages and they don't know what's going on. Leadership is not strong there. The country's not going in any particular direction, right? So it begins to justify what's being done. There was a social scientist, he's still alive. There's a social scientist and political philosopher, analyst called Noam Chomsky.
Yeah.
He wrote a book. Yeah. He wrote a book called Manufacturing Consent. And that's basically what he's talking about, right? Dr. Tommy J. Curry writes about this in the sexual dimension with phallicism, but it's basically like we put forward a really long-standing narrative about insert thing here so that when we want to do insert thing here to insert group there,
it's justified.
We're already ready to go.
Yep.
September 11th.
Yep. Hey, yep. And you like, I actually want to bring up an image here, though. Let me see if it adds it. Okay, nope. Let me do.
Looks like a toy, huh?
It is, but no, that wasn't the one I wanted to bring up. So it's actually this. So this is for this, especially, I don't know, Quadro, if you know of this, but for Badebo and Nedu, this is the Lagos Central Mosque. Did you guys know this thing existed? You guys have both been to Nigeria. I haven't. Did you guys know about this mosque?
I think it's like my parents have talked about it. They go their way off more often than I do. But yes, I do know of it at the very least.
The first I would know that knows of it, to be honest with you.
Really?
Yeah, because for further context, this is in Hausaland. Me, Nedu and I were Igbo ancestry, Debo, Yoruba ancestry, so we're more southern. This is more northern Nigeria. And so there's this great guy, I'm sure Quadro, you know of him, Robert, I think it's Robin or Robert Walker. He's known as a Black History Man. And I don't know how I stumbled across this stuff on. Sorry?
Robin, like the bird.
Yeah, I believe, it's Robin, yeah. And he just knows so much about our ancestry. He brought up this mosque. This mosque was built in the late 19th century. It's not even 20th century. It was finished in 1803, something like that. And none of us know about this because it's not, maybe in this case, like of Igbo ancestry. And so there's so much of our history that we don't even know about. And so you created that like Africans never did anything. Of course, when you believe that, and then you go to school and it just further reinforces this false narrative about us when it's, no, look at this thing. This thing is massive. There's even pictures of, I can put pictures inside, and it was finished towards the end of the 19th century. Think about that. Look how big that thing is. And it just goes back into how we have like easy negative views of each other without really questioning it. And so when certain things happen to us, just in terms of media narratives, I was watching same thing with Robin Walker. He was talking about part of the reason it was shameful because even in terms of the UK and Europe, it was very shameful to be African at that time. He was talking about like the media, what they would show is dead African bodies on the streets when there's like civil unrest. They would show the UNICEF, the flies, on the kid's eyebrow, and they're eating like a spoiled apple or something like that. It reinforces narrative that we don't have any culture. We can't control ourselves. We're just untamed beasts, right? We're no different than apes or whatever, whatnot. And so we think that about ourselves. And so other people say things about us, and it just reinforces certain cycles without us really questioning it when there's actually beautiful things that we created. In fact, I'll even pull up another one. Happy I know how to do this up on stream right now. I won't lie. Another one is called an underground church. This is JPEG. Hopefully it adds. Oh, cool. This is getting easier. Yeah. This is in Kenya, if I remember correctly. It's Kenya or Ethiopia. It's East Africa. Look at this. This is an underground Christian church. Never even knew stuff like this existed. There's so much of our ancestry that we don't know about because it's either hidden, it's relegated from us. Even the fact that like Egypt doesn't have the most pyramids. It's Sudan. Sudan has like about twice the amount as Egypt. Like they have 200 and something, and like Egypt has about Egypt has about 97 pyramids. Sudan has about 200 and something, 220 something. and counting, mind you.
Yeah, of course. Most people don't even know how big Africa is.
Nah, that's true. Yeah. They think it's very small because of those maps that we used to look up when we were younger. That's
Bingo. I was literally having this conversation with a guy at the gym yesterday, and he was a guy my age, but he's a Filipino guy. And I told him, most people don't know how big Africa is. What are you talking about? When I showed him, and I Googled it for him, he blew his mind.
wow.
There is a big media narrative to put down our image, and it's been going on for centuries. And we don't really take it as seriously until you watch certain media, even in terms of just adjacent thought, even the death of Bill Cosby's son, they put that on national TV until people spoke out against it. Like, they know what they're doing.
What do you mean the death?
Like when he passed it was a carjacking situation where he was off. I'm trying to also be mindful of YouTube, and the news showed his body.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Fresh. All news outlets. And then we're going back into how we're shown out in terms of media, whether it's something going up in Sudan and Nigeria or whatever, do it as much, even to bring it home. How they put on Trayvon Martin, right? On all the news channels and the newspapers and everything. You wouldn't see that for any other non-Black and especially male body. And this goes back into a lot of work of Dr. Curry and talking about how the only value a Black and male has is through being deceased, because then it affects by proxy the mother and the sister and all other people, but not his life having in some sort of inherent value.
Hillary Clinton said something similar in the 90s. She said that the greatest victims of war are women, because women lose their husbands, women lose their fathers, women lose their sons. To hell with the fathers and sons and husbands themselves. It's the women who are sad about it that are the greatest victims of war. And she said that. She really said that.
And the super predator.
Oh, yeah. Right.
And that one, can't forget. I was waiting for you to bring up that one.
I wouldn't even think about that. Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
That too.
These conversations are important. And I think this has been a great conversation, and we've covered a lot. And I do think it's also important that we do talk positively about culture. I do think there's ways in which we can carry culture and bring progress forward. We all know of Ibrahim Traoré and what he's doing. Like, the amount of things he's done in, 2 or 3 years is crazy. They have electric cars, rentable electric cars. They're pretty much a self-sustained country now. They have this Sahel states that they joined together on a matter of 3 years because progress was supported. And it was led by millennials. Like, he's a millennial. He's like, Deb has made the joke. She was just like, because Ibrahim Traoré is only a little bit of a year older than me. I'm 1989, March 18th, 1989. He's March 14th, 1988. So I married the wrong man. What are you doing? He's literally the president of a country trading Africa, and you're a podcaster who does. We're like, what did I do wrong? I'm like,
Dang.
trying.
Yes.
No, but there's ways in which we can bring culture forward and have progress. Like, I was looking at the Royal Talon fighter in Black Panther, and I was like, oh shit, it's a mask.
Yeah.
And I never noticed that. So I'll just put it on screen. I turned it upside down. It's literally an African war mask. I didn't know if you guys noticed that.
Yeah, not be like, oh, yes, I noticed that. But just because I remember growing up, we had a lot of pictures of, and it wasn't just like from Nigeria, it was all over the continent. We have a lot of pictures of war masks. My parents, again, were always really interested in like just Pan-Africanism in general. And yeah, when I saw it, I was like, what? And then when I saw the movie again with my dad, like when he saw the talent, he was like, he leaned forward. Again, it was very fun I watched him the second time I watched that movie. I watched just his reaction. But yeah, it was just real. Again, I like how it's just woven into the imagery of the film. Like, it's just, and I think that's what it means when it comes to Afrofuturism, where it's just like, how would they push these things?
Break down for futurism for people who don't know.
Oh, yes. Basically, Afrofuturism is the concept of what, because we have sci-fi, we always look at from a generally pretty Western lens. It's almost like what the future would look like, what science fiction would look like from an African perspective, and generally from an African perspective, right? Black Panther is a very great vision of that, because again, I remember this person I know who's white, he was just watching he said he watched the movie. He's, why would they just have spears? Why would they have guns? I looked at him like, I thought he was joking, but then I was like, oh, okay, listen, sir, First of all, the spear shoot fucking sonic blast. Sorry, the spears shoot flipping.
No, it's triggered.
Oh, there's sonic blast. They don't need guns. Second of all, this is Afrofuturism. They're going from the idea of, okay, how do we advance this current thing that we have and make it futuristic, right? It's just like it's missing the image. And that concept is all over the movie. And again, also in the comics too.
Sorry, no, I was just gonna ask, did you guys realize it was also a mask? Because I didn't realize.
No,
I don't know if I
thought that.
got it or it was pointed out to me because I know I eventually seen something like one of those YouTube Easter
Yeah.
bunnies or whatever, and he pointed out again.
Yeah. And Quader, you say you didn't know either, right?
No, I didn't never noticed that.
Yeah, I was just watching the movie and I'm like, wait a minute. I was like, hold on. And then I literally paused the movie. I have to pause when I take notes, whatever. I found this image and then I flipped it and I was like, oh shit, I never noticed this. And that just goes to show how like we can, I would even say technically subvert our culture in the name of progress, how we can just embed it. It doesn't have to be separate. And there's so much we can do with that as opposed to feeling like we have to choose one or the other. Like not riding rhinos to get to the US, taking an advanced fighter jet, but the fighter jet is modeled within what it looks like within a culture. And I realized it because same thing for you, same for me too, that it was like my parents had a lot of masks and things like that. So that's the reason I was like, oh shit, I didn't even realize it. There's just so much that we can do with that.
I'm glad you brought up the rhinos. Do you remember a show called Dino Riders?
Yes.
Hold on, let me
Yes, I do.
Google it. I do. The name sounds familiar.
Oh man.
When they came through on the rhinos, Dino Riders. And plus,
That's incredible. That's a great comp. I love that.
it was just they were just missing guns on the rhinos.
Yeah, this looks familiar. This looks
Oh
familiar.
my gosh. So many of those cartoons feel like a fever dream, but they all existed. Every single one of them. There's literally a cartoon called
Biker
Cadillacs
Mike and Mars.
Yeah, Cadillacs and Dinosaurs is an actual thing that exists. Like, it's
What?
just look it up. It's I thought I dreamed watching it, but my older brother, no, that was real. And we looked up like, oh my
What was the show?
Cadillacs and Dinosaurs. That's literally what it was. I
I
know.
think everyone just threw out like whatever idea and just we'll see what happens. Street Sharks, yeah, they have also sharks.
I remember Street Sharks for sure. I remember Street Sharks.
Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
Oh yeah,
what?
yeah. I remember that
Attack
one.
of the Killer. Wow, that's old school.
I don't know that one.
Oh.
Keep in mind, I grew up in Quebec, so we didn't get it's French. So if it wasn't a French version, they're like, you're just not gonna get it.
Yeah.
What is it called?
Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
That sounds ridiculous.
I
Absolutely.
would say it was in the same vein as Little Shop of Horrors.
Yeah.
Speaking of,
Wait, what did you say?
Little Shop of Horrors? Horrors.
Okay. I was like, what?
Yeah, enunciate.
Cosplay. Down that. I was like, what?
Horrors.
no demonetization.
Not today, right? If I didn't already mess it up, sorry.
Sorry, you were saying, Pedro?
I was just saying, speaking of French cartoons, do you remember is it either Muzzy or Muzzy? You know that one? This is like the 90s, the late 80s, early 90s. Muzzy or Muzzy. He was a monster, and he was like Dora, but Muzzy would teach you French.
No.
Yeah. It was around the same time as like Schoolhouse Rock.
I don't think I've seen that
I
one.
I found a museum. I've never
You
seen
found it?
actually. Yeah, I found it. It's like green, right?
Yeah, he's big.
I've never heard of this. I probably would have learned French if I was actually exposed to this because I hated as a kid.
Yeah,
I hated
yeah,
reading.
it's like a millennial cartoon to teach kids French. Yeah.
No kidding. Gosh, I probably needed that. I was not good at French class, let me tell you what.
Yeah, me neither.
After a certain grade, I had a hard time up till like grade 3. There's so much things. Even there's that scene, where Killmonger T'Challa's fighting M'Baku, and Queen Ramonda says, "Show him who you are." I was just like, that's the pride and you saw how like that they give him a power up. And I am Prince T'Chaka, son of King. Like you saw how like that pride really invigorated him to push through in terms of his hardship. And I do think that's a value in that, right? We can marry our culture we can merge our culture with progress. We can have pride in our culture as well that keeps us going. I take one of the conversations I often have with my wife is that I take a lot of pride with my name. Like when my was it? I think it was my dad taught me the meaning of my name. The full thing is Ebere. It means God's kindness. And it felt very important, and it meant a lot for me to carry the meaning of that name and to live it, as opposed to just having a name. It really reinforced like how I would carry out my life.
Yeah, sorry, just to go off that too. We were talking about names earlier as well, right? Like my name, there are some people, there's like maybe number of people can say on one hand, count on one hand, call me Ned. And that's because we were friends when we were very little. And like literally no one else can call. And that's just like, we've been friends since literally like age of 5 and up, right? So there's only like a few people that call me that, but everyone else, especially even after, I remember one time I was a good friend of mine invited me to like this party, and this is the last time I went to only white people. I remember that because I was like harrowing. But I said, my name is Nedu, and someone's, can I just call you Do? I'm like, no, you can't. I just said it like that. I was like, no, you can't. No, I'm just Nedu. Well, calm down. I'm like, I'm sorry. And I was just like, no, there's nothing to calm down. I'm asking you to call me by my name's already abbreviation.
Yeah, I was just like, do you? Yeah. After that, what?
No. And again, like when I was younger, again, like I got relentlessly, because I was the only Black in my grade and been one of few in my school. And again, massive weirdo. So it was just like relentless. And of course, my name was something that was always a bit of a challenge. Like people were just really awful about it. But like at some point, my parents were just like, your name means God's guides you. Like your name's like this, God's guides you, or like it's also can be taken as like God's power. So it's like you should have pride. And yeah, like exactly. It's just that's why at some point when I was younger, I'm like, this is my name. That's what you have to call me. And I have my first name is actually like is an English name, and so it's just that would be easier, right? That would be easier. But at some points, I get to dictate who I'm known as. And I really appreciate like that cultural context of what that means and why my parents gave me that name. And I think that's one of the things, like when you're talking about that scene where he's tell them who you are, felt that similar well of pride where he's just stands up and tells everyone exactly who he is and who his family is and what he's representing. And I think, again, this is a bit of an aside, but recently I saw Neja 2, which is a Chinese animated film that's very much in Chinese culture. It's probably the highest grossing animated film in the world, even though it's not doing amazing in North America, but everywhere else is doing great. And I was watching this at a theater and I saw these two Chinese kids that were like, when the character said something, we're just like, yeah, like when the character was doing things and talking about their family, their culture, these kids were literally fist pumping. And I remember that feeling as a young person, eventually kind of like embracing aspects of my culture, even though I don't speak the language, the things I'm still learning. But like when you embrace that feeling, that pride, that legacy, you feel like you're standing on the shoulders of giants and it helps you move forward. So yeah, I love that scene too.
Bro cooked.
Oh, now I have to take a nap. I'm just on that one.
How about for you guys?
What's the question?
Oh, so much for the question. Like, how do you guys connect with that scene of just Queen Ramonda saying, show him who you are, and just having that pride of that sense of knowing who your ancestry is, and what, even like in the case of me and Ned, like what our name be and so on and so forth, and how that can keep you going. Like as much as our culture has like issues, especially the way we're so concerned with following everything to a T, there is value in that, right? There is ways we can merge that with in terms of how we're going forward, in terms of what we're doing.
Yeah. I spend a lot of time thinking about that, like the veneer of the self, this idea that it's a highly like Western idea of individualism, that I exist alone, and that my decisions, my thoughts, my physical appearance and presence in any given situation is entirely self-evidentiary, and that's just not the case. My eyes, my nose, like these are my mother's hands that I inherit from her flesh. I didn't get here on my own. And if I'm smart or if I'm culturally attuned, like all of that stuff had to be fed into me from somewhere else. And I think it is that when we think of ourselves as disconnected from extrinsic forces and factors, many of which come before us, although there's something to be said about like the kind of like macro-African concept of time is cyclical, and that's a whole nother conversation, but just looking at ourselves as products of the past manifest in this current moment. I think it's a source of sometimes dread and like imposter syndrome and stuff like that, which I think is covered in the movie a little bit, but also great power and great
Is he going to say it? Oh,
No, you're going to say responsibility. You thought I was going to say responsibility.
I was like, he's going to say it. He's going to say it.
Like the full flirt. The fact is,
but yeah, I could have said it. I could have said it.
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Now that you say that, yeah, I could have said responsibility. That too. And that's part of the imposter syndrome thing. My ancestors are watching me. What do I do? How will I behave? A high degree of responsibility. In the case of the fight with M'Baku, I think is a source of inspiration. That if they could do it, if they were capable, that means that I am inherently capable. I'm no less than them.
I think it is just to even go back to the whole thing with M'Baku. And I really like what you said about just seeing ourselves as an individual without any connection, like us made it here on our own, is a very Western idea. There's this moment at the end of the fight, right, where M'Baku is about to be killed, and T'Challa's like, "Yield, your people need you." And M'Baku would have been like, "Dude, just kill me, take me out. I lost." But then he's just, "Your people need you," and then the reason he yielded is because, oh, he's right. I have a responsibility with great, like, he has a responsibility to his community. So he's like, "Oh, he's right. I have to yield here, because if I die, that'll cause issues." And who knows? Maybe they'll have a leader who's not capable. Maybe they'll go to war against these folks. I gotta yield. So that's very true. Like, he was able to let his pride go in order to make sure that his people grow.
Yeah. And that's really poetic because it speaks to a certain level of sacrifice, one that I will, for the purposes of this conversation, I'll itemize it or label it as almost exclusively masculine. This idea that we're not just talking about sacrificing one's life in pursuit of one's goals, but sometimes sacrificing one's own sense of ego, dignity, whatever, embarrassment. And although, like, on its face, it could be seen, if M'Baku did die, if he chose to not submit and die, wherever, we could say, oh, he's courageous for that. He had a lot of heart. Yeah, okay, sure. But effectually, from a utilitarian perspective, his tribe falls into turmoil, and there are all these longitudinal consequences associated with bro not wanting to submit because he had one certain type of strength that he was fixated on. And that's another type of sacrifice that I think a lot of men make that we're not credited for.
Yeah, and sorry, I just want to add, and it goes back into the passing of Kevin Samuels. There's this thing of, can't say whether it's true or not. I'm not so much of a tinfoilist, but whether he was off by the powers that be or not, I do think there's a point of John Henryism. So for those who don't know, John Henryism is black males, black men propensity to die from overworking themselves. And I do think there's a conversation that needs to be had in terms of how he was trying to manage everything on his own. And that put him at a greater risk for health issues. There's this, and he's like, there's all this very nature from, he lived a lot of savings for his family and so on and so forth. And yeah, that's great. But at the end of the day, they just lost a patriarch in their family. They just lost the man of the family. That doesn't benefit anybody. I guess for lack of a word, if you don't need to die, why are you trying to die? It doesn't really benefit anybody. And that speaks that strong point of you're supposed to just never yield, as Danzo put it from Naruto. And it's no, sometimes you need to, for the betterment of your community. They need you here more than not so much for your pride. And I do like that scene in that movie showing that. Diva, I don't know if you had any thoughts on that scene as well.
Not so much that scene, but just like what you were talking about there, it made me think back to T'Chaka and Njobu. Okay. And where we talk about maintaining the lie as a leader. And I want to pronounce your name properly. Quadjo?
Quadjo.
Quadjo.
I asked you. Okay.
Quadjo. Okay. Quadjo. You brought this up where it's like, as the person who's seen as a leader, you're going to have to, sorry, let me get back to, you talked about maintaining the lie. Sometimes the lie is done for good reasons. You don't want to necessarily put burdens on other people, or you don't want to ruin the image of somebody. Now, nobody spoke ill of Njobu. And that's because the lie was maintained. He was not seen as the betrayer of Wakanda. He was just probably a war dog that died in the service of Wakanda. Because at no point in the movie was he seen as somebody who was bad or traitorous to Wakanda. Even when Killmonger called him a murderer, the first thing the queen did was call him a liar, yelling, "My husband wouldn't do that." So in maintaining the lie, in Jobu, his dignity was left to remain, and at no point was he made to look like anything less than what everybody remembered him as.
That's really interesting. I hadn't thought about the way that he himself
was honored.
Posthumously was the beneficiary of. There's several lies involved in the whole telling of the story and what happened, but just the omission that, hey, he saw this white man, our stuff, and endangered all of us. That part of his identity is not discussed.
Yeah, because even there's the aspect of him marrying and this was a big deal in my family at that point. My dad is the second oldest in his family. Like, being the second oldest, it comes with a lot of wearing the quote unquote crown, if you will. And for those that don't know, there's probably second oldest among. No, I have 10 uncles and 10 aunties, just for people to know. Like, my grandfather had 4 wives. So just for people to get the context, he was the second oldest. And my dad married someone from Trinidad. So you guys know you are marrying a foreigner, an outsider. So that was a really big deal. Now, aunties, uncles, siblings, even me and my wife is Congolese. Like, now it's more of an okay thing. Even as time has gone, we're talking about like 1970s, 80s in Canada, and you're marrying someone that's not one of us, right? That would have been a big deal. Like, that Jobu married a Westerner, foreigner. It would have been a big deal for them too. So, good point.
Absolutely. I don't know if this because it's interesting too, because I think it one and the same as well anyway, but it's just, was the lie maintained to maintain Njobu's dignity, or was it the family's dignity, or is it just both? It is, because you're right. Like, I didn't actually think about that either. When you brought that up, I'm like, was it for Njobu's sake? Was it for the family's sake? Or is that just seen as one and the same? It's like the whole thing where it's just, this sibling is bringing shame to the family, and we can't stand that this person is doing this. Again, I'm sure you've seen this. I see this a lot of folks I've worked with too, where they're the strained person in the family, and the family's upset at them because of the shame. They're the black sheep, and there's so much shame in that, and family's more angry because everyone's seeing how different you are, and that's a problem, as opposed to like that you're bringing shame on the whole family. I wonder if that's would be the case with Njobu. This position, regardless, again, I think the result is there too, because I think it's easy to say T'Chaka probably didn't want to kill his brother. I don't think that's what he wanted to do. And so I think it's just like, you get 2 birds. You get to maintain his dignity, and you get to everyone gets to remember your brother the way you wish he was. And then your family's legacy is also secure. And so it's just like that lies, just like you said, several lies upon lies are just doing all kinds of heavy lifting in this situation.
Yeah, I think I think both can be one and the same. Maintaining his face along with that of the Golden Tribe. T'Challa's part of the Golden Tribe, for those I don't know. There's the Jabari tribe. There's I forgot the Border tribe. They're part of the Golden Tribe. Just for people to know. But yeah, no, that's some great points. I think it's been a great episode. I don't want to make the episode too long. This has been a fantastic conversation. My throat's actually getting dry, funny enough. Just as we were talking about that, that's my wife's cup. I stole it.
I was wondering what the D stand for on the cup.
Yeah, no, she actually complains. I'm like, you're not using it, so I'm going to use it. So now there's a D somewhere in Ibarachuku. Yeah, I don't know if you guys have any closing thoughts on this. I think this has been a great conversation. I think there's work for us to do and to keep doing. I think our cultures are the way it manifests in different ways, whether it's in the Caribbean, whether it's in part of the Americas, even Europe, Africa. There's great things about us, and we're seeing it. I think Ibrahim, what he's doing in Burkina Faso, how it's spreading to the rest of the world, shows how we can do both. It is possible. I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts.
I'll wrap up my thoughts with who I felt the MVPs of the movie were.
Oh, okay.
MVP number 1, Nakia, and MVP number 2, M'Baku. Because Nakia, she stole the last heart-shaped herb and held it off for what they were going to do. And this leads to why who's what part MVP.
Yeah.
They were going to give it to him. He could have took it himself. But the first thing he did was like, come with me. And he took them to T'Challa that he found and said, okay, give it to him. He's the one that needs to get it. And then after initially refusing to not help take part in the Civil War, he's the one that came and saved the day, basically.
Yeah.
So those two MVPs for me.
Yeah.
The silence.
I agree with M'Baku. I have issues with Nakia's character that's a whole nother radio show. But the brother was solid. There's an existing kind of like psychology around male bonding rituals. And it's this concept, the Greeks like hazing, or like in Black culture in the United States, playing of dozens or roasting each other, so on and so forth. So this idea is that in Brother Nedu will be able to tell you about this. And oftentimes these behaviors are pathologized as one or another kind of artifact of toxic masculinity. Yep. As one or another artifact of toxic masculinity. Why do men fight each other? Why do we tease each other? Why do we say bad things about one another? So on and so forth. There was a clinician and psychologist in the 90s, Dr. Juanza Kunjufu, who said basically his research yielded that these are mechanisms that we use to test one another, to test our merit and to test the strength of another man. And that if I'm able to say something about you that makes you upset and now you're out of your character, then that means I can't trust you. You can't be trusted because you're led by your emotions. And it's a means by which that we sharpen each other and we make each other better. In this way, I think at the outset, M'Baku as a challenger, as a rival, as one who was really concerned about traditions and didn't express them in the most friendly way, I think he was seen like as an enemy, but really when you look closely, that's all he was doing. That's all he was doing was just like testing the resolve, making sure that things were the way that they were supposed to be. And when the time came, there's all these people with all these negative emotions about him, but then he ends up subverting all of those expectations because he never was the bad guy. He was a solid brother.
You saw how they referred to each other as brother when Thanos came.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would have loved to have seen how their relationship would have developed in Black Panther 2 had Chadwick had sadly passed.
Well, yeah. One of the things I was really hoping to see, I could not agree with you more.
Yeah.
That would have been sick. Yeah. That would have been cool.
Yeah. M'Baku's glow up from the comics is one of the, it's just, gosh, I remember when I was like, when it come out, I'm just like, what are they going to do? What are they going to say? And then like M'Baku, I'm like, of course, they'll just say his name. Come on, Daddy. What are you, an idiot? Because his companion with comic books is like pretty, it's not great, right? He was a very, very just offensive kind of stereotype of a character. But like the way they handled it in the movie, you can tell people like, no, there's some good here. Let's make this character something interesting, as opposed to just completely getting rid of him. So I loved what they did. It couldn't be happier. I think what I'm going to say is Killmonger, there's a lot of stuff with that character. And I just really, like I said, it frustrates me how they just have to make him super evil in order for him to be so wrong that we cannot consider the things he's saying.
Even the what if stories too. Forgot about that. Sorry, go on.
No, you're absolutely correct. But it's just like, you have this quote that's always stuck with me and I'm just going to read it just at the end of the movie, right? Where he's just basically, he's got the spear in his chest and T'Challa's right beside him. He's like, we can save you. Let me bring you back. And he's just like, why? So you can lock me up? Nah, just bury me in the ocean with my ancestors who jumped off from the ships because they knew that death was better than bondage. And he's just, nah, you're not locking me up. Like it sucks because I would have loved that character to continue. But he was just like, no, I am never going to be in bondage. And I remember, again, my dad and I talked about that line quite a bit. And then just even talking about the history of Nigerians being transported across the ocean and how many of them literally jumped off boats in order to get away. So that was just stuck with me because my dad and I had a long conversation about that line in the car ride home.
I remember going to work that day when I was still working in Scarborough, and I remember just you're right, there was a lot of in-depth conversation I had with the youth about that line and how it resonated with them, especially the boys at the time.
I agree with you so much about how you felt that the character of Killmonger, flawed as he was right.
He was my favorite character in the movie. Even though his hairstyle became the thing in every video.
It's a good hairstyle. That's what annoys me. I'm like,
it was until it
played out. It's played out, man.
still good. It just isn't too much. There are more.
I think it's absolutely ridiculous that Miles has it in the video games. He's wearing a mask, and how is his dreads being pressed down? That doesn't. I can suspend myself because he shoots like webs and lightning and stuff. That's just ridiculous. I'm sorry. What?
It's just also I just don't see that as Miles' style. But again, maybe I'm just speaking over from the comic books too. So I don't know. Anyway,
You know how some of these people are when it comes to our hairstyles, because there's that infamous picture where it has the dude from Recess, the dude from
Recess.
yeah, the dude from Captain Planet, and the dude from Miss Frizzle's class.
yeah,
All have the same haircut, the same aesthetic. It's like they're different. It's like the same character in different grades.
yeah. You are so right. I completely forgot about that image. Holy crap!
Yeah. Flat top. And then Gerald.
Yeah, when they get the hair right, when they get their hair
and a
right,
jersey.
they're gonna rock with it. Because
have a
they've been
jersey.
getting their hair right wrong for a long time. Look how they did the poor brother Zach from Power Rangers.
He walks so we can run.
Accurate.
All right, man. This is a great conversation. Thank you guys for tuning in.
Thank you. It was great. Thank you. It was awesome. It was a lot of fun.
Also, I'm going to do this before we end this. It's Quadra. One more time?
Quadro.
Quadra. Okay. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in. This has been a great conversation. We're out.
Thank you for having me, brother.
Peace.
All right, y'all.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and a review. To catch the latest news, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Black Nerd Talks. And if you enjoyed our latest episode, consider subscribing to the podcast. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.